Marvel. Rescue Iron Man's father at the beginning. Chapter 21. The box opens. What caught the eye was an elliptical, curved spaceship model. From the looks of it, there's nothing unique about it other than a realistic look. Is this the product that Stark Industries is going to show? This is the Hexagon, not the toy fair, what a joke. Everyone was confused when they saw this. They talked a lot, even a little bit aggrieved, thinking that Colin was playing with them. Ignoring the surprised expressions around him, Colin directly took out the small spaceship from the box, and began to introduce it unhurriedly. This is not a model of Common, but a miniature spaceship equipped with a light-speed engine, powered by a fusion reactor. As energy, it can overcome the effect of gravity, cross the starry sky, and even realize the leap between galaxies. Colin's words were resounding and clearly spread to every corner of the conference room. This mini spaceship is nothing else, it is a simplified version of the Brive spaceship. Although it does not have electronic pulse guns, laser weapons and other fire support systems, it has a unique light-speed engine, which makes this simplified version comparable to the original version. Navigating power system. In order to demonstrate this miniature spacecraft, we have installed a camera inside it to record its voyage. Definitely, your military can also use radio positioning radar to monitor the trajectory of the spacecraft. In the conference room, the military personnel looked at each other in blank dismay, wondering and undecided. General Stryker pondered for a while, then nodded. Do as he says. As soon as the words fell, the military personnel in charge got busy immediately, contacted the nearby air traffic control and military radar stations, let them emit electromagnetic waves, locked the mini spaceship, and monitored its movements in real time. Everything's ready. At this time, I saw Colin came to the window, and at the same time grabbed the mini spaceship, leaned out the window, and was about to start it. The atmosphere in the conference room became tense unconsciously. Everyone couldn't help but hold their breath when they saw this scene. The camera was also turned on to record the scene before the launch in real time. Even Nelson Hammer got up from his seat, staring at the miniature spaceship with a little bit of surprise, and for some reason, his heart was a little flustered. Next moment, under the watchful eyes of the people, Colin started the spaceship. Fueled by the energy from the fusion reactor, the miniship's light-speed engine revs. Shua. Accompanied by a sharp whistling sound, the miniature spaceship broke through the sound barrier in an instant, and disappeared into the blue sky, so quickly that it couldn't even see its shadow. As for the picture shown by the camera, the surrounding scene quickly reversed in an instant, and then the picture stopped abruptly and turned into pitch black. Where's the spaceship? Staring closely at the pitch black screen, Colonel Rhodes blinked, couldn't hold back the doubts in his heart, and asked with a stunned expression. It has already broken through the speed of light and flew out of the surface. To be precise, it has been annihilated in the stars. Colin shrugged, disapprovingly. Since it is a light-speed engine, the speed of the miniature spaceship can exceed the speed of light under the full force of the speed. In just a few milliseconds, it has turned into a rainbow that spans the universe and flies to a distance of more than 300,000 kilometers. However, this mini spaceship is a simple version after all, and it is not equipped with a defensive barrier, so it cannot withstand the impact of space turbulence, so it has been destroyed by the stars and turned into a little dust, but even so, it does not affect the display at all. The function of light-speed engine and fusion reactor energy source. Impossible, this must be your trick to fool us, just investigate the radar monitoring, the electromagnetic wave scanning will not lie. Nelson Hammer jumped up in disbelief and growled at the surveillance personnel. At this time, General Ross was also curious in his heart, and asked the monitors, how is it? Has the result come out? Report to the General. Just now we mobilized all the nearby aviation surveillance radars and military radars to lock the position of that miniature spaceship. But without exception, all of them failed. The only thing that is certain now is that the mini spaceship is no longer on the Earth, but has escaped into space and flew to an unknown galaxy. Patter. Nelson slipped his hand, and a warhead he was playing with fell to the ground and bounced a few times. What did you say? Does it really exceed the speed of light? General Stryker's complexion changed suddenly, and he jumped up from the seat. His eye sockets that were about to burst were full of shock and disbelief. The scene was completely silent, and a needle could be heard. The sound of gasping for air echoed in the conference room one after another. Ross, Stryker, Rhodes, Nick Fury, Phil Coulson, Norman, and Nelson all had expressions of shock and disbelief on their faces, and they couldn't hide their surprised expressions when they looked at Colin. Seeing the shocked expressions of these people who had never seen the world before, Colin grinned, feeling very pleased. Lightspeed engine, fusion reactor energy source. These two technologies, no matter which one they are epic-making technologies that can cause a sensation in the world and are milestones. Now they finally understand the meaning of what Colin just said. This time, Colin only brought one product. He didn't need so many bells and whistles. Just this one product was enough to beat Osborne and Hammer and smash all their products into scum. And just as Colin said, this is not a pure military product, but has already surpassed the scope of military industry and has become the pinnacle of technology that can lead the future. If this kind of spacecraft is used in the military, then the establishment of a space army will not be limited to an idea, but will actually become a reality. Colonel Rhodes from the Air Force, his palms were sweaty and slippery. Light speed engine, faster than the speed of light, it's just incredible. General Stryker's breathing was stagnant, his veins were exposed, and his eyes showed an extremely fanatical look. The assistant Jarvis smiled wryly in his heart. It seemed that he was really worrying too much. All of this was already expected by the chairman. It turns out that this is where Colin's whole card lies. Nelson slumped down weakly, his slack eyes were about to lose focus, and a feeling of shame that made him feel ashamed. You know, he was just refusing the products of Stark Industries over and over again, but he didn't expect to be slapped in the face by the speed of light in seconds, and it was in great pain. But among all the people, General Ross was the one who touched him the most. With the appearance of this spaceship, the top-secret Pegasus project soon appeared in Ross's mind. At the moment, Ross and Stryker exchanged a look, found a tacit understanding from each other's eyes, and thought of the top-secret Pegasus project in unison. Regarding this plan, it has to be traced back to the 1940s and 1950s. After the victory of World War II, Howard and Carter jointly established SHIELD and launched 3 project research plans: Goliath Project, Breakaway Project and Pegasus Project. The Goliath Project is to study the deformation of the body, through the enlargement and reduction of the matter at the atomic level, to make the object originally enlarged and reduced. During the Cold War, Hank Pym, who was working at SHIELD at the time, made a breakthrough in the Goliath Project, developed Pym particle technology, became the first generation of Ant-Man, and took a step forward in quantum technology research. Out of the program, unknown for the time being, it is said that it was recently contracted by a man named Reed and his research team. Future Fantastic Four. As for the final Pegasus project, it is a bit special. Its content revolves around the Tesseract dark energy to develop a fighter that travels beyond the speed of light, so as to achieve the purpose of traveling through interstellar time and space. Different from the other 2 projects, the Pegasus project is the most difficult and ambitious, so it is jointly researched by NASA, SHIELD, and the military. Just 5 years ago, as the research progressed, a scientist named Wendy Lawson mastered the core technology, and even developed a fighter equipped with a light-speed engine. But just when Project Pegasus was about to achieve great results, unexpectedly, an accident happened. During a test drive of a light-speed engine fighter plane, scientist Wendy Lawson and Air Force Flight Officer Carroll crashed unexpectedly. Wendy Lawson died on the spot, and Flight Officer Carroll was missing. With the death of Wendy Lawson, the wings of the Pegasus project were also broken, the overall plan came to an abrupt end, and a series of mysteries were also left behind. It is worth mentioning that this is the top secret belonging to the military and SHIELD, so the ranks of Colonel Rhodes and Nick Fury are definitely not aware of this secret that has been dusty for many years. However, in the past 5 years, a technological product that is more powerful than a light-speed engine fighter has appeared. With the advent of this mini spaceship, the Pegasus project ushered in a turning point again. Whether it is Ross or Stryker, they are keenly aware that this may be an opportunity to restart the Pegasus project. Thinking of this, they were immediately immersed in the joy of surprise and surprise. How long will it take for this spaceship to be developed? Probably another 3 months. After a rough estimate, Colin said that now Tony and his technical team are in the process of intensive research and development, and it is estimated that it will be completed in 3 months at the earliest, and it will not exceed half a year at most. Ross was overjoyed when he heard the words, and immediately asked, "So how much is your company's quotation? How many ships can you sell at most?" $3 billion USD, according to the current progress. By the end of next year, 3 ships should be able to be built. Fingers tapped rhythmically on the table, Colin thought for a moment, and then directly made an offer. "You know, the current unit price of the United States F-22 fighter jet is $300 million United States dollars. Colin figured that the price of this spacecraft would have to be 7 or 8 times higher. "What? 3 billion United States dollars, this is too exaggerated. A F-22 fighter jet is only 300 million United States dollars at full cost. This is like talking to a lion. You Stark Industries are too greedy." Several senior military officials were dumbfounded when they heard the offer, and said with some dissatisfaction. From their point of view, Colin is asking for a lot of money, and he basically regards their hexagonal building as a cash machine, right? Norman Osborn and Nelson Hammer on the side were also shocked. $3 billion USD. This price is too bold. In comparison, the weapons and ammunition they sell to the Hexagon building are not the price of cabbage. Nonsense. Doesn't the research and development and improvement of this spaceship cost money? If you don't have money, you can build one for me. The price is set, and the price is 3 billion United States dollars. If you want to buy it, you can buy it, and if you don't buy it, you will lose it. Colin waved his hand, and said willfully, with an undeniable majesty in his words. "Find out. This spacecraft, this is a seller's market, okay?" Furthermore, Colin's quotation is one thing, but whether he is willing to sell such an epic-making product is still another thing. If you don't buy it, you don't have to worry about where to go anyway. Colin believes that as long as he reveals some rumors, as soon as he gets the news, the big dogs in the Middle East will definitely come over to buy it. With that said, Colin was about to greet Jarvis and leave the conference room. Wait a moment. Seeing this, General Ross hurriedly stood up to persuade him to stay, and made an apologetic smile. He quickly made a call with his exclusive landline, and then paced back and forth in the conference hall with his hands behind his back. After a long while, Ross gritted his teeth and pounded his fist on the palm of his hand, as if he had made an extremely difficult decision. His eyes were full of pain. "Okay, at the unit price of 3 billion United States dollars, 3 spaceships, all the spaceship hexagons are needed." "What?" Hearing what General Ross said, there was an uproar at the scene, and everyone was blown up. Nick Fury, Phil Coulson, and Colonel Rhodes couldn't help but gasp in disbelief. Knowing that Colin was asking a lot of money, Ross, Stryker and other high-level executives still made this decision. The unit price is 3 billion United States dollars, which means that if all 3 ships are bought, it will be 9 billion United States dollars, an order of nearly 10 billion United States dollars. So scary. Thinking about it carefully, this should be the largest purchase order ever made by the Pentagon so far. In the row of arms dealers, Norman Osborn and Nelson Hammer were also shocked. Their shrunken pupils were full of shock and disbelief, and their jaws were about to drop from shock. With a large order of nearly 10 billion, the Hexagon building must be crazy. You know, the total assets of the entire Hanmer military industry is only a market value of 100 billion. Stark Industries and Hexagon, one dares to make an offer, and the other really dares to place an order. Norman Osborn and Nelson Hammer looked at each other, both pale and showing bitter smiles. Who would have thought that Colin would throw such a bombshell in this matchmaking, and also had the last laugh, becoming the real winner. This time, Stark Industries is doing a really big project. In contrast, Osborn's 500 million orders and Hanmer Military's 1.9 billion orders are really dwarfed, and the difference is huge. No harm without comparison. With the finalization of the order for the 3 spacecraft, the result of this matchmaking meeting is undoubtedly the dust settled. 3 spaceships, a huge order of nearly 10 billion. Stark Industries is a well-deserved biggest winner. However, considering the development progress and construction period, the 3 spacecraft will also be delivered within 2 years, and Stark Industries retains the patented technology rights. Under the jealous eyes of Norman Osborn and Nelson Hammer, the senior military representatives represented by Colin and Ross signed the order agreement and issued an external cooperation statement. After talking about the matter, Colin left the Hexagon building under the respectful send-off of the high-level military. Mr. Colin. At this moment, Nick Fury ran after him from behind. It turns out to be a big hit from S.H.I.E.L.D., what's the matter? Colin looked at the future head of S.H.I.E.L.D. He neither liked nor disliked him. After all, although Colin didn't appreciate Nick Fury very much, his perseverance and conscientiousness were commendable. What's more, Howard is also one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D. To some extent, Stark Industries and S.H.I.E.L.D. have a deep relationship. Just wanted to ask if Hydra has come to trouble you recently. Hydra. Since the failure of the last assassination attempt, they have quieted down a lot. Colin raised his eyebrows and said meaningfully. To be precise, under the warning of the meteor volcano released by Colin, the Hydra organization has restrained its actions a lot, and it does not know which dark corner it is dormant at the moment, and has not shown up for a long time. Well, but it's better to be careful. After all, according to HYDRA's behavior style, they won't let it go easily. Perhaps. After all, this Hydra is really stubborn. It has been entangled with S.H.I.E.L.D. for decades, but it has not been wiped out. It seems that their vitality is really strong. Could it be said that being cut off a head? Can you grow 2 more heads? Colin joked with a playful look, and there was some teasing in his words. You know, as a pair of old enemies who love and kill each other, S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra have confronted a stalemate for decades from World War II to the present, but neither of them can eliminate each other. I don't know whether to say that HYDRA's vitality is too tenacious, or that S.H.I.E.L.D. is too useless, maybe both sides are equally indifferent. Sensing the insinuation in Colin's words, Nick Fury couldn't help but blush, but the fact is true, and there is really no reason to refute it. Besides, Nick Fury also felt that this matter was very strange. Since the defeat of the Nazis in Germany, Hydra attached to it was also seriously injured. According to the situation at the time, S.H.I.E.L.D. could have taken advantage of the victory to pursue and annihilate the remnants of Hydra in one fell swoop. But I don't know why. Every time they take action against Hydra, the opponent seems to be able to predict the enemy's opportunity, and every time the crisis is resolved without any danger, so they can survive, and the power remains to this day. Due to the keen sense of smell of an elite agent, Nick Fury felt that this matter was not simple, and there must be something strange, but this also reflected HYDRA's ineffective response from the side. Just when the atmosphere fell into embarrassment, there was another mechanical electronic sound in Colin's ear. In the face of Nick Fury's misgivings, make your choice. Option 1. Conceal the truth as if nothing had happened. The task is completed, and the reward is Ruo Huo, from the world of Death God. Option 2. Reveal the truth and expose the undercover identity of S.H.I.E.L.D. Chief Pierce. The task is completed, and reward Uchiha Sasuke inheritance, from Naruto world. Option 3. Frame Peggy Carter as an undercover agent for Hydra. The task is completed, and you will get a Batmobile from the 600th world. When Colin heard this beautiful system prompt, he couldn't help but feel excited. Unexpectedly, facing Nick Fury can also trigger the option. Soon, Colin collected his thoughts and focused on these 3 options. If you want to say that the most trouble-free option is definitely the first option, to conceal the truth, you can get rewards without doing anything, it's like earning rewards while lying down, and you won't cause any trouble. However, the reward for the first option is Flowing Blade, a swordsmanship skill. In terms of swordsmanship skills, Colin already has the free and easy swordsmanship, and has completed the run-in with the vibranium sword. The power is extraordinary, and it is enough for the time being. As for Grandpa's Batmobile, Colin said that he is not interested at all, he already has a spaceship, what more bicycle? Besides, Hydra is the common enemy of himself and S.H.I.E.L.D. If he can take this opportunity to get rid of the undercover agent in S.H.I.E.L.D., it would be a good thing. In view of such considerations, Colin already had an idea in mind. Thinking about this, Colin took a deep look at Nick Fury and said with a half-smile, "Do you want to know why S.H.I.E.L.D. failed to completely eradicate Hydra many times, and was led by them? Is there something hidden here?" Nick Fury was taken aback for a moment, a little confused. Walls have ears, let's talk elsewhere. There were people coming and going in and out of the Hexagon building one after another. There were so many people here that it was not a place to talk. A quarter of an hour later, in the corner of a coffee shop. Why do you say that Hydra has already sneaked into S.H.I.E.L.D., and has installed many undercover agents? When Nick Fury heard the news revealed by Colin, he couldn't help being stunned. Seeing Nick Fury's fussy look, Colin couldn't help but rolled his eyes and silenced him. It was only then that Nick Fury realized his gaffe, looked left and right, and after seeing that there wasn't much movement, he lowered his voice and said, "Are you sure it's true? Do you think it is necessary for me to lie to you? And this is HYDRA's long-planned infiltration plan, called the Paperclip Project. The so-called Paperclip Plan, to put it bluntly, is an infiltration plan. After Red Skull disappeared that year, S.H.I.E.L.D. incorporated various talents from Hydra. But these people in Hydra believe in immortality, and gradually turned S.H.I.E.L.D. Blacken into HYDRA's lair, so as to preserve the blood of Hydra and be rooted in S.H.I.E.L.D. These undercover agents want to divide and eat away at the power of S.H.I.E.L.D. from within. And some inner ghosts have held high positions during the ups and downs of the past few decades, and even have a pivotal role in the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. Your current director, Pierce, is the head of Hydra at S.H.I.E.L.D. Immediately afterwards, Colin revealed another shocking truth. How can this be? When these words reached Nick Fury's ears, it was like a thunderbolt, which immediately surprised him even more. The current director, Pierce, is actually an undercover agent of Hydra. Isn't that incredible? But when Nick Fury calmed down and thought about it, he also vaguely noticed some clues. Thinking about it now, Director Pierce looked very strange when he learned that Winter Soldier failed to assassinate Howard, and he did not take timely protective measures against Howard. This alone is doubtful. But how did you know about this information? There was a hint of puzzlement in Nick Fury's eyes. Oh, have you forgotten that my father, Howard Stark, is one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D.? As a member of the Stark family, I naturally know a lot of inside information that you don't. Is it strange? Colin spread his hands and asked a question, and said the wording that he had planned to explain a long time ago. After a pause, Colin added, "If you don't believe it, you can investigate it carefully, and the truth will naturally come to light." Under Nick Fury's watchful eyes, Colin tore off another sticky note from the dining table, and then Long Fifeng Wu wrote the names of many people, and then handed it to the other party. The people on this list are all Hydra undercover agents, definitely these may just be the tip of the iceberg. This. Are we stabbing an undercover nest? Looking intently at the densely packed names on the sticky note, Nick Fury couldn't help but cover his forehead. His scalp felt numb for a while, feeling like his thick hair was about to go bald. Across the seat, Colin also looked at Nick Fury with some sympathy. As his thoughts diverged, Colin suddenly thought of the Jin in Conan, and found that the two had many similarities. Nick Fury and Jin have one thing in common, that is, their original business abilities are excellent. But looking back at them, they are either useless trash, or undercover agents placed in the organization by the enemy. Down to the agent members Grant Ward, Crossbones, and up to the current director Pierce, they are all without exception HYDRA's undercover agents in S.H.I.E.L.D. And Nick Fury, like a member of S.H.I.E.L.D., fell into the undercover den of Hydra. Even the King of Divine Adornments can't bring a group of bronzes. Thank you, sir, for reminding me. I will definitely investigate. Nick Fury put away the list with a solemn expression, and then left the cafe in a hurry. Looking at the back of Nick Fury leaving, Colin took a sip of the hot coffee in his cup, his eyes sparkling. Although Nick Fury's position in S.H.I.E.L.D. is not very high, his business ability is outstanding. With the list he provided, Nick Fury only needs to conduct a targeted investigation. I believe that everything will come to light in a short time. He just wait for the good news. At the same time, the news about the Lightspeed Engine spacecraft and the tens of billions of orders signed between the Hexagon and Stark Industries also spread quickly, and caused huge amounts of sensation in the business and technology circles. 20 times. 30 times. 40 times. 50 times. 60 times. 63 times. In a file-sized house, in a spherical gravity cabin full of technological texture, Colin is doing gravity load training. As the value gradually increased, an unimaginable force of gravity pressed on Colin's shoulders like a mountain, and his bones, blood vessels and internal organs were all under great impact. In such an extreme situation, Colin has to do a series of exercises such as sprinting, push-ups, jumping, etc., so as to cultivate his physical strength. For ordinary people, 3 or 4 times the gravity is the limit, and a few people can reach 6 or 7 times the gravity. However, in the past half a month, Colin has been practicing unremittingly, and now he can control up to 63 times the gravity. As the practice progressed, Colin's physical strength was also constantly strengthening, becoming more tenacious and powerful. His blood surged like a tide, his spine was like a dragon, his hips were like a tiger, and his combat effectiveness also soared accordingly. However, Colin is not complacent because of this. In Dragon Ball, Sun Wukong can withstand up to 300 times the gravity, and he has just achieved the terrifying combat power of a Super Saiyan, so Colin still has a long way to go on this road of cultivation. To go. The 2-hour practice was short but long. After finishing the practice, Colin walked out of the gravity cabin with his upper body naked and sweating profusely. Seeing this, the maid on the side hurriedly wiped the sweat off Colin's body with a towel. At the moment, I saw that Colin was strong and burly, the muscles on his body were bulging one by one, the knots were protruding, tough and powerful, with great visual impact, and even exuded a bronze luster under the sunlight. A strong hormonal aura emanated from Colin's body uncontrollably, making the maids beside him tremble, and a bright blush quickly climbed onto the pretty face. After practicing, he took a comfortable hot shower. Colin couldn't help but feel comfortable all over. Before he had time to rest, he drove to the Stark building again. There was an important meeting waiting for him today. By the time Colin came to the meeting room, all the participants had already arrived. There are not only the heads of the company's departments, but also prominent shareholders, including Howard and Tony. Today's meeting is to listen to the company's recent performance status, and to announce new measures for the company's future development. According to the comprehensive reports of several departments, Stark Industries' revenue has risen steadily, especially the order for light-speed engine spacecraft, which has increased by more than 30% year-on-year, which can be said to have achieved remarkable results. Immediately afterwards, Colin announced an important strategic plan, that is, while Stark Industries adheres to the military industry, it will also accelerate investment in aerospace, energy, and artificial intelligence to expand the scale of the industry. The reason for making such a decision is that Colin naturally has deep considerations. The reason why the Stark industry can develop at a high speed now is largely due to the influence of the Cold War, which is in line with the needs of various countries and regions to expand their power. Scale is bound to decline. Be prepared for danger in times of peace. Stark industry must follow the trend of the times and make better plans and transformations. In the future, it needs to move closer to emerging industries such as aerospace, energy, and artificial intelligence. With the completion of the nearly 1-hour speech, the meeting room erupted into thunderous applause after a moment of silence. The eyes that looked at Colin were full of respect and admiration, and they were full of endless yearning for the future and longing. The chairman is really far-sighted. In the foreseeable future, aerospace, energy and artificial intelligence are huge amounts of outlets, and we must take good care of them. The light-speed engine spacecraft is undoubtedly the best example. While Austin Group and Hanmer Military Industry are still in the old eyes, we need to develop these emerging industries as soon as possible so that we can distance ourselves from them. Looking around at the passionate participants, Colin's eyes were fixed, with a deep light shining in his eyes. Stark Industry needs to carry out necessary transformation on the basis of the original, which means that the development of Stark Industry will enter a new era. Until the end of the meeting, the high-level participants were still immersed in hopeful visions, and it was difficult to calm down their excitement for a long time. Colin, it's incredible how smart and far-sighted you can make decisions. Howard patted Colin on the shoulder kindly, without concealing his relief and admiration. Hee, what a joke. Colin shrugged disapprovingly. What a joke, we are men with God's perspective, and we can have a panoramic view of future economic development and trends, so that we can naturally avoid disadvantages and make correct decisions. Howard looked at Colin in front of him with relief, full of pampering. Recently, Colin's performance has really made people more and more surprised. Whether it's defeating Winter Soldier Bucky with one hand, or making repeated achievements in business. Whether it is to control the Stark Group vigorously, or to obtain the design drawings of the light-speed engine spacecraft and sign the tens of billions of orders with the Hexagon building, these series of methods are exquisite and amazing, and they did not disappoint him. In this way, I can safely hand over the company to you, and then I can travel around the world with Maria, which is what we have always dreamed of. World travel. That's right, if it wasn't for Hydra's assassination that delayed the trip, we'd probably have played around in the Bahamas for several laps. Colin nodded thoughtfully. This is true. As Howard grows old, it has become his long-cherished wish to enjoy travel and life after retirement. It turned out that he wanted to assist Colin to manage Stark from the sidelines and wait until everything stabilized before retiring. Now that Stark Industry is back on track, he definitely has no worries and can start his retirement life without any scruples. As for Tony, I'll leave it to you to take care of him from now on. Howard glanced at Tony, and said in an educational tone, Tony, while we're away, you have to listen to what Big Brother has to say, and don't cause trouble. After Tony heard this, he looked at the big brother Colin, who had a smirk on his face, and felt like crying. Once upon a time, he was also someone else's child in the mouth of other parents, but now, the limelight of big brother Colin has completely overshadowed his limelight. Now both Howard and Maria are proud of Colin, and Colin is about to become his psychological shadow. On the other hand, Tony not only lost the halo of genius, but also served as Colin's free labor while pursuing his studies, which is simply horrible. Colin touched Tony's dog's head with a kind smile, and promised Howard that he would take good care of the younger brother, reassuring them, and Tony had to show a slightly stiff smile under Colin's coercion. Seeing the harmony between Colin and Tony, Howard nodded in satisfaction, and then left the Stark building, impatiently starting their round-the-world travel with Maria. Tony, we need to take care of each other from now on. Colin smiled brightly and said to Tony kindly. Tony looked up at Colin's warm smile, and for some reason, his heart skipped a beat, with a sudden sense of foreboding. At the moment, an ominous premonition suddenly rose in Tony's heart. Under Colin's good deeds, Tony really liked to mention more than 10 scientific research projects, and couldn't help but shed tears of happiness. It is foreseeable that for a long period of time in the future, he will be surrounded by these scientific research projects, and he will never have a good sleep. For the first time in his life, Tony has felt helpless about his scientific talents. Watching Tony's slightly heavy back leave, the corners of Colin's mouth lightly lifted, revealing a knowing smile. In the original book, although Tony is a genius inventor and problem solver, he is also an indifferent manager who has not made much contribution to a super enterprise like Stark Industries. If it hadn't been for Xiaojiao to help him manage the company would have become a mess, which is unimaginable. So Tony is naturally suitable for scientific research, but not good at running and managing companies. In contrast, Colin is better at coordinating the overall situation. So Colin asked Tony to focus on scientific research for his own good. I believe he should be able to understand his own good intentions, Colin couldn't help thinking. After the meeting, Colin returned to his office. As soon as he stepped into the office, Colin couldn't help frowning, and his sharp eyes swept around the office. He had a faint feeling that something was wrong in the office, but he couldn't tell exactly what was wrong. Is it my hallucination? Colin murmured and sat down on the chair behind the desk. Not long after he sat down, the portable phone on the table rang. When the phone was connected, there was a roar of cars on the other end of the phone, mixed with the sound of gunfire. Mr. Colin, sorry to disturb you at this time. Nick Fury. What's going on with you? Is it a real version of Fast and Furious? After careful investigation, we finally found the evidence that Pierce is an undercover agent of Hydra, and now I am leading my men to hunt down Pierce, who fled after hearing the news. So that's it. You finally found out the clues, which means that your shield has not reached the point where there is no cure. Only then did Colin understand what was going on, and the investigation about Pierce finally came to light. It seems that Nick Fury and his teammates are not too useless, and they can be taught. Listening to the voice on the phone, Nick Fury and the others dispatched a lot of force. It shouldn't be a problem to catch Pierce. By the way, Mr. Colin, do you know about 10 rings? I heard a little bit. What's the matter? Colin was slightly taken aback. Why did the other party suddenly mention 10 rings? Could it be that there is something hidden in it? As far as I know, 10 rings seems to be eyeing you recently. You'd better be more careful. Not to mention, Pierce seems to have reinforcements arriving, and he must not be allowed to slip away. Nick Fury hung up the phone in a hasty tone. It seemed that something happened to him. Putting down the portable phone, Colin put his crossed fingers on his chin, and his pupils shrank slightly. 10 rings. Colin remembered that he should have no grievances with this organization. Why did he focus on him? Could it be that, like the original book, someone inside wanted to collude with 10 rings and replace him as the chairman? But this idea was quickly rejected by Colin as soon as it came out. Now that Obadiah is dead, Stark is also united. No one can compete with him, let alone replace him. So, if there is a contradiction, it comes from the outside. It's just not known exactly why. But even so, Colin is not worried. After all, Colin's current combat power has soared, especially his physical body and martial arts realm have reached the innate Mahayana realm. Even if he is compared to level Godfather, he is not much inferior, let alone a 10 rings. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully dismantling the undercover identity of SHIELD Chief Pierce. The task is completed, and reward Uchiha Sasuke for inheritance. At this moment, a system prompt sounded in the ears at the right time, making Colin's eyes brighten. In the system interface, a vague figure gradually became clear. This is a young man wearing a sleeveless dark gray vest. Behind him is a fire symbol that symbolizes the Uchiha family. His expression is indifferent, his eyes are scarlet, and his bangs on his forehead are slightly messy. Exuding a fierce and murderous aura, as if he was a god of death without emotion. Uchiha Sasuke Legacy. The next moment, it turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the center of Colin's eyebrows. You must know that the probability of character inheritance rewards being spawned in this selection system is still very small, which is equivalent to getting a rare card when playing a game, which can be encountered but not sought. Not to mention Sasuke Uchiha, one of the protagonists of Naruto World. Among other things, the Eternal Kaleidoscope Sharingan alone can display unpredictable pupil techniques, and even summon Susanoo. Such a secret skill of both offense and defense also complements Colin's defensive strength. Insufficient. With Uchiha Sasuke's inheritance, Colin is equivalent to having another whole card, and he will not be afraid to face any strong player below level Godfather. Just when Colin was secretly rejoicing, he suddenly heard rustling noises in the office. This time he listened attentively, and he was sure it was not a hallucination. The sound was very faint, and it was constantly moving. It was very strange, and it would have been difficult to detect it if it hadn't been for Colin perception. Sharingan. Colin tried to use the Sharingan inherited by Uchiha Sasuke, and saw his right eye turned, and the black pupil suddenly turned into a scarlet color, turning slowly like a blood-colored windmill, revealing a palpitating evil shine. At the same time, his eyesight instantly increased dozens of times, and his dynamic vision zoomed in. With his eyes focused, he could see everything in the office clearly, and nothing could escape his eyes. With his eyes flicking, Colin quickly found the source of the voice. Colin started Sharingan, as if he had been blessed by a super microscope. His eyes were piercing, and he could see every tiny corner of the office at a glance, and nothing could be hidden. Soon, he found the source of the sound, and saw that it was a tiny object like an ant, moving rapidly. Taking a closer look, Colin finally saw clearly that it was not an ant, but a villain the size of an ant, wearing a strange costume, and at the moment was fumbling with something next to the safe. It turned out that a thief sneaked in. Colin locked onto the trace of the other party, stepped out with a lingbo, and in a blink of an eye, he came to the villain, stretched out his fingers and grabbed the villain. The villain was startled when he saw this. He had clearly hidden his tracks carefully, so how did the other party find out? The villain didn't have time to think about it. He turned his head and crawled to the bottom of the bookshelf next to him when he saw that the situation was not good. His small body was moving around in the corner of the office, coming and going freely, very nimbly, and it was hard to catch him for a while. Beiming divine art. Accompanied by a low shout, Colin stretched out his palms, crossed his fingers and aimed at the villain. The junchi in his palms moved rapidly like a whirlpool, generating a strong suction force. Beiming Shenggong is one of Xiaoyaozi's unique skills. Simply put, it is to absorb people's internal force by drawing the negative pole to the positive pole. The deeper one's own internal force is, the greater the suction will naturally be. A strange gust of wind blew up in the office, and the villain was swept into the air by this strange suction force. Colin took advantage of the situation and clasped him in the palm of his hand, imprisoning him firmly. Colin blew on the small figure in his palm. The latter swayed to and fro like grass in the strong wind, looking extremely distressed, mixed with terrified screams. Tisk tisk, what a weak ant. Colin was playing with this villain as if it were a plaything. You kid, put me down quickly. The villain raised his head and looked up at Colin with difficulty, and said old-fashionedly. At the same time, he was surprised, why Colin has such a powerful strength, which is much stronger than the captain of the United States in Legendary. Could it be said that the new director of Stark have you been hiding your true strength all these years? Hee hee, you sneaked into my office, are you reasonable? If you are interested, show your real body quickly, otherwise I don't mind crushing you an ant silently. A stern look flashed in his eyes, and Kaylin said angrily, with unquestionable majesty in his words, now he only needs to move his fingers to pinch this villain to death effortlessly. Okay, count yourself as ruthless. The villain's heart trembled. He had seen how powerful Colin was, but in desperation he could only make his figure gigantic, restore his original appearance, and take off his mask at the same time. Colin looked at the villain who had returned to normal with great interest, his eyes flickering. I saw that this was an old man in his 70s, with a pair of glasses and gray hair, but his spirit was still very hale and hearty. Sure enough, as Colin expected, this person is none other than the original Ant-Man Hank Pym. Hank Pym also worked in S.H.I.E.L.D. and developed Pym particle technology. Later, because S.H.I.E.L.D. copied his Pym particles without authorization, he broke up with Carter, Howard and others. After leaving, Pym Technology Company was established. So to a certain extent, this Hank Pym and Howard and even S.H.I.E.L.D. are quite related, but why doesn't this old man stay in his company and secretly incarnate as Ant-Man and come to Stark Industries? The old man must have another purpose. I wonder who it is. It turned out to be Dr. Pym. Why don't you stay at Pym Technology and come to my Stark Industry? What's the matter? Do you want to catch up with my dad? Colin said with a half smile. Huh, what is there to catch up with that guy? Do I want to thank them for copying my Pym particles without authorization? Hank Pym snorted and said, it seemed that he was still brooding over the incident a few years ago and couldn't let it go. Since you're not here to reminisce about the past, what is your purpose? According to the law, you broke into the company's important place without permission. Just relying on this is enough for you to drink a pot in New York prison. Pym couldn't help but blush when he heard the words, feeling a little ashamed. After hesitating for a moment, he pushed down the frame of his glasses with his fingers and revealed the truth. To be honest, I came here because of the light-speed engine spaceship. Under Colin's persecution, Pym finally explained his reason for coming. In fact, Colin already had some guesses about Pym's intentions. Previously, with the news of the tens of billions of orders from Stark Industries and the Hexagon building, it caused huge amounts of sensation in both the business and technology circles. Not only because of the huge order, but also because of the priceless technological mysteries behind the light-speed engine spacecraft. After all, at the current level of Marvel's technology, fighter jets broke through the speed of sound more than 10 years ago, and the speed of light is even more out of reach. The light-speed engine technology owned by Colin undoubtedly broke through the existing shackles and led technology to a new era. How can such an epic-making great product not be coveted? That's exactly what Hank Pym is here for. You know, a similar situation is not the first time for Hank Pym. As the first generation of Ant-Man, Hank Pym has already become a legendary agent with great achievements during the Cold War. He often incarnates as Ant-Man, conducts various espionage activities, and even completes the interception with his wife Wasp for such a difficult task as a missile. His agent skills can be seen from this. But this time, Hank Pym used such an agent method in business. One is to steal the technology of the light-speed engine, and the other is to retaliate against Howard, although Stark's current chairman has become Colin. After sorting out the ins and outs, Colin suddenly sneered, and the corner of his mouth curled up in a sly arc. After figuring out the ins and outs of it, Colin knew it well. I didn't expect you to be so interested in the light-speed engine. It's a pity that you are not an academic exchange, but trespassing on our company's important place and intending to steal the highest technological secrets. I don't know how long you will stay in prison for such a crime. Colin sat on the sofa in a dainty manner, squinted at Hank Pym, and said meaningfully, "What do you mean?" Hank Pym narrowed his eyes, showing vigilance. "You don't want such a thing to happen, do you?" At this point, Colin immediately changed the topic. "How about this? I will subcontract part of the spacecraft project to you, and in exchange, your Pym technology will allow me to invest 35% shares. How about this?" The reason why Colin said this also has his own calculations. 3 spaceships, an order of nearly 10 billion is undoubtedly a big project, and it is difficult for Stark Industries alone to swallow it. It is better to subcontract some parts that do not have much technical content to other companies to speed up the project. Order progress. Definitely the most important thing is that he has taken a fancy to the development potential of Pym technology. As a technology company that can compete with Hanwha military industry and AIM in the future, Pym technology has an indisputable dominance in the microfield industry. Investing in Pym technology and deploying the miniature industry in advance, the returns will be quite generous in the future. Besides, all the money stolen from Hell's Kitchen has been laundered, and with the tens of billions of orders just signed with the Hexagon, Colin is worried that he has no place to invest this much money. As the saying goes, there is no place to find if you break through the iron shoes, and it takes no effort to get it. The Pym technology in front of you is a very good choice. Unexpectedly, Hank Pym immediately vetoed the words. "No, as we all know, Pym technology is a family business and never allows external capital to intervene, so I advise you not to think about Pym technology." Quote. Hank Pym's painstaking efforts are condensed in Pym technology, and no one else can get involved. Moreover, Hank Pym has never cooperated with others because of the lessons learned from the unauthorized copying of Pym particles by SHIELD. Then there is nothing to discuss. If this is the case, then I have no choice but to report the matter to the police. I believe there will be a news on the headlines tomorrow. A well-known entrepreneur entered Stark to steal business secrets and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. It caused an uproar among the fishing boats in the industry. I have already thought up the title for you, and it is called Legendary Agent in the Past, Today's Prisoner. The eye-catching index will definitely explode. Are you threatening me? Hank Pym looked at Colin, who made it clear that he wanted to eat him, and couldn't help but fly into a rage. "No, you misunderstood me. I'm not threatening you. I just feel a little sorry for you. A scientific genius like you has been famous for most of his life, but in the end he lost his reputation at the end of the year. It's really embarrassing. If I remember correctly, you should have a daughter named Hope. I don't know how she will feel when she knows that she has such a bad and discredited father." Colin shook his head, pretending to sigh with emotion. Facing Colin's psychological offensive, Hank Pym's complexion was blue and red, and the weather was changing. In the end, when Colin talked about Hope, he undoubtedly hit his weakness, and his pupils shrank suddenly. Like father like son. No, to be precise, you are more shameless than Howard. Have you ever nothing less than that? Hank Pym felt so aggrieved. Thinking about it, it was really unlucky. He originally wanted to come to Stark to secretly steal the light speed engine technology today, but he didn't expect to be caught by Colin, and even caught by the other party, using this as a threat to seize the equity of Pym technology. Although he slandered endlessly, he knew in his heart that what Colin said was not a joke. You must know that Stark Industries has a very close relationship with the military. As long as Colin uses some means, his consequences will be disastrous. Besides, Hank Pym originally has some shady black material. Where is it? I have won the prize. Colin grinned and smiled shamelessly. Okay, then do as you want. After pondering for a moment, Hank Pym sighed helplessly and had to make a compromise. This time, it was really a steal and a loss of rice. I lost my wife and lost my army. At the moment Hank Pym had mixed feelings in his heart, and even had an idea that he was cheated by Howard Stark before, and now he will be cheated by Colin Stark. Could it be that the Stark family is his lifelong nemesis? But it's not all bad news when he thinks about it carefully. At least Pym technology can get a share of the spaceship order. He couldn't help but cover up and comfort himself in his heart. Seeing this situation, Colin also struck while the iron was hot, and quickly signed 2 agreements with Hank Pym. One is an agreement to subcontract part of the spacecraft project to Pym technology, and the other is an equity agreement for Colin to invest in Pym technology. In this way, we will be business partners in the future, and we have a happy cooperation. Then do I still have to thank you? That's unnecessary, but besides that, there is one more thing I want to bother you. Hank Pym was so angry that he almost turned the table over on the spot, but considering that Colin was still holding the handle on him, he could only calm down his emotions and leaned forward to listen. After seeing off Hank Pym, Colin was in a great mood. Not only did he become a shareholder of Pym Technology as he wished, but he also reached a certain kind of cooperation with Hank Pym, allowing him to do one thing for himself. The next thing will be more and more interesting, and Colin can't help but look forward to it. Gathering up his endless thoughts, Colin's consciousness was immersed in his mind, and he continued to integrate Sasuke Uchiha's inheritance, and practiced further. What I have to say is that Uchiha Sasuke's power system is still very complicated, including the Thunder Escape ninjutsu taught by Kakashi, the secret art of the Uchiha family, and the power of the curse seal obtained from Orochimaru. A variety of power systems are intertwined and integrated in Sasuke's body, which really explains what it means to have more skills without overwhelming one's body. However, Colin's philosophy is that abilities are not in many but in essence, so he decided to focus on selecting a few of these various abilities to practice purposefully. They are Sharingan Mystery and Lei Dun, and they definitely need to comprehend the ultimate reincarnation ability. After figuring out the joints, Colin focused his eyes, and quickly devoted himself to the practice. After all, in this Marvel world where gods and demons dance wildly, technology is only auxiliary, and only strength is the real king. Just when Colin was immersed in cultivation and couldn't extricate himself, because of the huge impact of the light speed engine and Stark's tens of billions of orders, it was still continuing to ferment. Osborn Group. Since returning from the Hexagon, Norman Osborn has felt a sense of urgency due to the rapid development of the Stark industry, so he devoted all his energy to the research and development of new products. Outside the laboratory, Norman Osborn walked back and forth restlessly with his hands on his back. Today is the day when new products under the Osborn Group are put into trial, which is of great significance to Norman and the entire group. After a long experimental process, the chief scientist of the group came out of the laboratory. Before the other party took off the experimental mask, Norman Osborn rushed forward to hold the other party's hand and asked, "How's the result of the experiment?" Experiments have proved that the human strengthening medicine developed by our company can make the physical fitness of the experimenter far exceed that of ordinary people, and the side effects of the current drug are also within the controllable range. The chief scientist replied with a smile. Great, the investment is finally not in vain. Norman Osborn was ecstatic immediately, his arms fluttered, and he couldn't hide his excitement. At the same time, the phone in the room rang. As soon as Norman Osborn answered the phone, he heard the baby crying from the other end of the phone, and then the medical staff said, "Congratulations, Mr. Norman, the baby is born, it is a boy, and now the mother and baby are safe." God bless, this is the second good news I heard today. The Osborn Group has welcomed a new heir. Today, good things come one after another, which is double happiness for Norman, and finally dilutes the gloomy clouds that have shrouded Norman's heart these days. Mr. Norman, you haven't named the baby yet. Just call it Harry Osborn. Hanmer Military Industries. Nelson Hammer was hit hard by his loss in the matchmaking. Since he came back from the Hexagon, he has shut himself in the room, depressed, but in just a few days, he has aged a lot, looking old look. On this day, he called his son Justin Hammer into the office. Justin, from now on you will take over Hanmer Military Industry. Nelson raised his heavy eyelids and looked at Justin expectantly in his dark eyes. Father, why did you suddenly make this decision? The times have changed now. I am no longer suitable for today's shopping malls. From now on, it will be your young people's world. Justin, don't let me down, remember your real opponent is Colin, you can't be compared to him. Understood, I will keep your words in my heart. Facing Nelson's scorching gaze, Justin nodded heavily, and said solemnly. Pym Technology. When Hope saw the new terms of the new shareholding document in his hand, he asked his father Hank Pym with some puzzlement. Father, when did Colin Stark become our new shareholder, and he also took up a lot of shares? Hasn't our company always refused the intervention of external capital? Hank Pym sighed. It's a long story. But we have also won some subcontracting projects for the Light Speed Engine spacecraft, which is not a bad opportunity for us. Hope thoughtfully. I hope so. In a laboratory of a university in the United States. Failed again. After another failed experiment, Killian, a doctor of biology, felt frustrated, and even angrily smashed the experimental equipment at hand. When he caught a glimpse of the Colin Stark poster hanging on the wall out of the corner of his eyes lit up. If you look carefully, you can see posters of Colin Stark hanging on the walls of the laboratory, and there are many interviews and reports of Colin Stark on the bookshelves. There are even many speech videos about Colin Stark stored in the computer. Colin Stark's periphery is literally everywhere. Killian is a big fan of Colin and regards Colin as a great idol. Different from other fans, Killian adores and admires Colin so much, even to the point of exclaiming in fanatical paranoia. His dream is to become a science and business wizard like Colin one day. I must become a wizard like Colin. Thinking of this, Killian's eyes revealed a frantic look, and then he picked himself up again and threw himself into a new round of experiments. Xavier Ability Junior Academy. Professor X browsed the news reports on Colin Stark and light speed engine technology. His eyes lit up, and he murmured, "Colin is a rare business genius who can lead a new era of technology. Discrimination, he may become a link to maintain peace between humans and mutant." Chin Gele, who was making tea for Professor X, couldn't bear to hit the other party when she heard this. "Professor, don't be too happy, whether the other party is an enemy or a friend is still a mystery." Chin Gri said so, but having said that, it is really rare and strange that there are people in this world that Professor X cannot see through. Taking a sip of the hot tea, Professor X still maintained a gentle smile. "Chin, let us wait and see. Remember what I told you, never be too pessimistic, humans and mutants can live in harmony." "I hope you're right." Shield, interrogation room. "What? It turned out that Colin saw through my real identity." When Pierce learned the truth, he couldn't help but exclaimed. Pierce was surprised. He had never had any grudges with Colin. How could he provoke such a god? Moreover, the fact that he is an undercover agent of Hydra is almost the most secret inside Hydra, and no one except the leader of Hydra knows about it. He has been undercover in S.H.I.E.L.D. all these years and has been careful, never revealing any flaws, so the question is, how did Colin know? A series of doubts lingered in his heart, which made Pierce look dignified and terrified. Using an old Chinese Sha saying, "Paper cannot keep fire. As long as you do this thing, there will be a day when you will be exposed." Nick Fury stared at Pierce with deep eyes, and reprimanded loudly. Not only Pierce was puzzled, but even Nick Fury was astonished. Colin accurately saw through Pierce's undercover identity. This is simply the ability of a prophet. In Colin's words, this is the Chinese Sha divination calculation he obtained by accident, from. If Pierce knew that Grant Ward, Crossbones and other Hydra undercover agents were all caught by Colin, I don't know how he would feel. Without wasting much time with the other party, Nick Fury straightened his expression immediately. "Okay, you should also tell the truth about all of HYDRA's plots." On the other hand, when Hydra headquarters got the news that Pierce and other undercover agents had been arrested and the Paperclip project was completely bankrupt, Hydra executives were in a panic all day long, and quickly ordered all operations to go underground and enter a period of hibernation. In a hidden cave in the Middle East, a man with a stern face and 10 rings on each hand stared coldly at a photo of Colin Stark held in his palm. The next moment, murderous intent loomed in the man's fierce eyes, his 5 fingers slightly moved together, and he tore the photo into pieces in an instant, then got up and floated out of the cave. Just as the outside world was turbulent. Colin's strength is also improved day by day along with his practice, whether it is the control of the physical body, martial arts, the power of lava, or the integrate inherited from Sasuke Uchiha, he has made great progress. According to the levels in the Marvel world, they are divided into Earth level, level Godfather, level Single Universe, Multi-Universe level, Super Universe level, Almighty Universe level, Beyond Level Universe, OAA, Omniscient and Omnipotent. Leaving aside psychokinesis, if we only talk about physical body and martial arts realm, then Colin is no less inferior to level Godfather, even very close. This kind of combat power is enough to beat the Rice team and the Green Titan in the non-furious state, Even if it encounters Odin and Ancient One Mage, it still has the power to fight. The only thing lacking is the lack of psychokinesis. Definitely, this does not happen overnight. It takes time to accumulate. Both Ancient One and Odin are old monsters that have survived for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. How long has Colin been practicing? Coupled with the blessing of the selection system, it is only a matter of time to make up for the lack of psychokinesis and even surpass level Godfather. On the other hand, the business world has also received frequent news recently. The Osborne Group can't wait to launch their new products, and Hammer Military Industry has also replaced a new CEO, Justin Hammer. They are all ready to go and seek opportunities. Definitely, Stark Industries is not far behind. With Colin's series of business initiatives, the Stark industry is also showing a thriving trend, and the orders for military weapons are soaring, so that it has attracted many big customers. This includes big dogs from the Middle East. Apart from being happy to enjoy the extravagant life of luxury and money, these upstarts demand the most arms, and now there are more and more arms trade with Stark Industries. On this day, after attending an arms exhibition, Colin returned along the same road in a Rolls-Royce. The results of this arms exhibition are still very fruitful. With the new submachine guns, howitzers and rockets that Tony just developed, Colin negotiated an order of more than $3 billion with those big dogs. It can be said that he returned with a full load. Unknowingly, the car passes through a wilderness and hills, which is very desolate and remote, with few people and even few buildings along the way. Colin looked around the scene from the car window, a strange look flashed in his eyes, and he murmured, "Strange." The driver of the car in front couldn't help asking curiously, "What is the chairman saying is strange?" "Colin, it's so quiet in here." Following Colin's line of sight, the driver was also a little suspicious. "It is indeed too quiet here, everything is silent in broad daylight, even the birds and animals are gone, it is a bit strangely quiet." Next moment, the road ahead suddenly trembled slightly, and two armored vehicles drove out from the hidden rocks, and ran over the rugged roadside and rushed towards this side. At the same time, the whistling sound of propellers suddenly sounded in the sky not far away, and two armed helicopters surrounded from the flanks. Armored vehicles and helicopter gunships coming out of nowhere. The driver's expression changed. As for Colin, he sat calmly in the back seat, and there was no fluctuation on his calm face. Two armored vehicles and two armed helicopters approached from three different directions like horns, trying to block the way of Colin's car. Da da da. Shish. The next moment, two armored vehicles and two armed helicopters attacked at the same time. As the flames burst out, countless bullets poured out densely from the barrel. Several shells were fired one after another from the barrel of the armored vehicle. Under the repeated attacks of airborne machine guns and artillery shells, the car was first riddled with holes, and then exploded with a bang, the fire was burning, and gunpowder smoke filled the air. Shua shua. I saw two black shadows flashing, and a fat man and a tall man jumped down from the two armed helicopters respectively. Jin Bin, this is the Yasha killer you mentioned. 2 shells will finish the job, it's too vulnerable. The first person to speak was the tall man with a sharp and thin face, long hair hanging down to his shoulders, and several rings of different colors and shapes on the 10 fingers of his hands, exuding strange magic power. Hehe, Mandarin has a way. He was able to mobilize so much firepower, set up an ambush secretly, and kill him without a single soldier. As expected of the leader of 10 rings, he was really straightforward. Jin on the side kept nodding his head in agreement, squinting his smiling face, and there was no lack of flattery in his words. Ever since Jin Bin was ransacked by the mysterious Yasha killing god Blood, he has held a grudge against the Yasha killing god. After a painstaking investigation, he finally found out that the other party's real identity is Colin. Jin didn't know that he was not Colin's opponent, so he asked Mandarin of 10 Rings for help. You know, Jin is not the boss of the underworld with a criminal network all over the world, and Mandarin's 10 Rings is the leader of a terrorist organization that has shocked the world. As the 2 leaders of the evil forces, they have a close personal relationship and have cooperated a lot. Jin wanted to avenge Colin, and Mandarin also coveted the Stark industry. The 2 hit it off and decided to join forces to deal with Colin. Scene. Mandarin and Jin were still laughing complacently 1 second, but the next moment, their expressions suddenly froze, and they couldn't help but gasp. When the smoke from the car explosion dissipated, Colin walked out of the smoke unscathed, with a cold aura under his calm expression. Colin grinned, with an evil smile on the corner of his mouth. I didn't expect the leaders of the two major forces to join forces to deal with me. It's really deliberate. It's a pity, if you think this can kill me it's too overwhelming. Colin's heart skipped a beat. Mandarin and Jin Bin teamed up to set up an ambush here, and even used armored vehicles and helicopter gunships. It really took great pains. Having said that, this is also the second assassination I have encountered since I came to this world. The difference is that the first time Hydra targeted the Howards, but this time it really came for me. Unexpectedly, this will not kill you. Mandarin frowned, with a look of surprise on his face. Jin, who was on the side, recalled the scene of Colin's bloodthirsty massacre that night, and a chill ran down his spine. He looked at Mandarin worriedly. What should we do now? What are you panicking about? Do you think that the ambush I set up is all for nothing? When Mandarin waved his hand, the two armed helicopters circling the sky seemed to have received some kind of instruction, and they turned on their fire control systems one after another. Shish. Two Sidewinder missiles mounted on the helicopter were launched suddenly, and a dazzling red flame streaked across the air, locking onto Colin's direction and launching. When the missile was about to attack, Colin's expression became fierce instantly, and the protective energy spread all over his body, as if attached to a layer of impregnable armor. Accompanied by a strong roar, two Sidewinder missiles exploded, and the terrifying shockwave surged in all directions. As for the center of the explosion, Colin had no injuries except for his slightly messy clothes. Day after day of training in the gravity room, Colin has forged an incomparably strong and indestructible body. Coupled with the body protection skills of the Xiaoyao school, it even allows him to resist the power of missiles. I've given you a chance, I'm useless. A scornful light flashed in Colin's eyes, and a murderous intent loomed in Colin's eyes, and a powerful aura rose steadily. Then, Colin's hands began to turn into lava, and he lifted his arms over his shoulders, firing many lava bombs into the sky like a machine gun. Soon, those lava bombs turned into giant magma fists, falling rapidly from the sky, exuding a reddish-red light, which looked like a gorgeous meteor shower from a distance. The terrorists in 10 Rings were dumbfounded when they saw this. How can there be meteors in broad daylight? Isn't this too weird? Why did the temperature suddenly rise and become so hot? WTF. No, those are not meteor showers, but magma rains falling from the sky. The terrorists screamed in panic, abandoned their armored vehicles and helicopters and fled, scattered like birds and beasts. Even Jin Bin was so frightened that he hid behind Mandarin, which aroused Mandarin's contempt. The meteor volcano magnifies constantly with the acceleration of the falling speed, shining brightly like a golden sun, and the scorching hot and terrifying high temperature hits the face, as if it can evaporate all the water in the human body in an instant. Boom. Amid the deafening bangs, the volcanic meteor turned into a blazing magma rain and swept the audience. Wherever it passed along the way, the armed helicopters in the sky and the armored vehicles on the ground were instantly crushed and melted into molten iron flowing away. Come on, those terrorists were burned to the bone. Just when the magma rain was about to swallow Mandarin, he moved the little finger of his right hand, and the ring inlaid with blue gemstones suddenly shone brightly. During the surge of magic power, a black light full of menacing and dead energy spewed out from the ring of Mandarin's little finger. The black light instantly turned into black mist and spread out. As soon as the magma flame touched the black mist, it disappeared without a trace like a mud cow into the sea. 10 Lord of the Rings. Colin glanced over the 10 rings on Mandarin's hands, and his pupils shrank slightly. You know, the reason why Mandarin was able to thrive and lead the 10 Rings to become a terrorist organization that can rival Hydra is because of his 10 magic rings. The 10 Lord of the Rings are Resetter, Influencer, Time Stretcher, Windcaller, Nightcaller, God Controller, Sunblaze, Thundermaker, Liar, and Icemaker. 10 kinds of Lord of the Rings, corresponding to 10 kinds of powerful abilities, such as reorganization of matter, shooting various beam attacks, acceleration of matter, and control of airflow and wind. And the magma flame that Colin released just now was devoured by the dark realm created by the Nightcaller ring on the little finger of Mandarin's right hand. It is worth mentioning that most of the top 10 Lord of the Rings have the characteristic of long-range attacks of light beams, so the best way to deal with them is to fight in close quarters. Thinking of this, Colin raised his eyebrows, and a bright light shot out from his sharp eagle-like eyes. Concentrating the true energy on the soles of the feet, Colin stomped heavily on the ground, and his whole body flew towards Mandarin like an arrow from the string. Seeing this, Mandarin couldn't help frowning his slender brows. He stretched out his index finger again, and the brilliance flowed on the ring of the influencer. Accompanied by the sound of sharp tearing air sounds, a condensed and strange light beam shot out from the ring. The light beam contained a terrifying penetrating power, as if it could tear all everything as pierced. Colin's thoughts turned, and his right eye suddenly opened Sharingan, which was scarlet and spinning like a blood-colored windmill. At the same time, strands of purple flames suddenly appeared on Colin's body surface. The flames rose against the wind and turned into Purple's ribs and arms, wrapping Colin's head, heart, knees and other key parts. The appearance of Susano helped Colin block most of the light beams. Even if he was hit by the light beams, it only made Colin's movements slightly stagnant, and then he took mysterious and weirdling bow micro steps, and he couldn't move forward. Raised out violently. But in a blink of an eye, Colin has already quickly approached Mandarin. Sensing a sudden and fierce momentum, Mandarin's face changed, and his heart was awe-inspiring. Seeing Colin approaching quickly, Mandarin couldn't help frowning. Even though Mandarin didn't want to fight in close quarters, under such a situation, he could only force it, so he immediately activated the ability of the Resetter Ring. The ability of the Resetter is to reset and combine objects at the subatomic level. Along with the frenzied surge of magic power, Mandarin's body was also reset. His skin became firmer and tougher, his muscle density increased, his bones became like cast iron, and his whole body seemed to be reshaped, becoming reinforced and indestructible. At the same time, Colin was already approaching Mandarin, with iron palms flying, attacking like a dragon. Mandarin, whose body has been strengthened, also tried to use a set of body-strengthening secrets to challenge Colin. At first, Mandarin could barely fight Colin for 1 or 2 rounds with its steel-like body, but as Colin gradually exerted strength, Mandarin quickly took a sharp turn and fell into a disadvantage. At the moment, the results of Colin's day-to-day training in the gravity room are reflected. The super-strong body that can withstand 70 times the gravity makes Colin's strength and speed far exceed 100 times that of ordinary people. Colin's offensive was swift and fierce, extremely domineering, sweeping out like a stormy sea, with terrifying forces overlapping and undercurrents, erupting layer after layer. Mandarin's blood surged all over his body, and he felt the bones in his body being squeezed inch by inch, showing pain on his face. Mandarin was horrified. Is Colin's body made of titanium alloy? It can withstand the bombardment, and there is a weight of power between the fists and feet, so terrifying. Who would have thought that Chairman Stark, a business genius like Chairman Stark, would be capable of writing in martial arts, and hide such terrifying methods? Wearing a suit can make people chat and laugh happily in the shopping mall, and they can dominate the situation, while wearing a military uniform can also cross the river with fierce dragons and brutally kill the quartet. This guy is terrible. Is he a monster in human skin? Jin Bin, who was hiding behind the rock, was terrified and trembling. In just 2 short months, Colin's cultivation has grown a lot stronger, and he was annoyed at his decision to provoke Colin again amidst his thoughts. Colin is full of fighting spirit, and his body's strength explodes layer by layer. In order to prevent Mandarin from using the power of the Lord of the Rings, he must end the battle as soon as possible. Thinking of this point, Colin immediately activated the small formless kung fu, and the thick internal force quickly circulated in the body. In an instant, the momentum was like a rainbow, as if there were 6 small golden wheels winding around his body. 6 sun palms of Tianshan Mountain. The next moment, Colin's junchi poured into both palms, and the junchi accumulated in his body seemed to find an outlet to vent, turning into a surging domineering energy and blasting out. Faced with this extremely powerful blow, Mandarin's eyes flashed with fear. He stretched his hand to the side, and quickly grabbed Jin, who was hiding behind the rock, and blocked him in front of him. Boom! Jin Bing's fat body like a mountain of meat was smashed to pieces on the spot, and before he had time to utter the screams and wailing before dying, he had turned into pieces of blood and rained down. Although Mandarin avoided the fatal blow, he was still seriously injured by the aftermath of energy and flew backwards. His body was bloody and his sternum collapsed. In addition, several bones on his body were broken. With the death of Jin Bin and the subordinates of 10 rings, only Colin and Mandarin are left in this huge wilderness and hills. The bloody atmosphere filled the surroundings, full of dignified and chilling meaning. Your companions are dead, and you should go down to accompany them. Under Mandarin's horrified eyes, Colin walked slowly, gradually approaching, without any emotion in his indifferent words. Looking around at the corpses and armor fragments everywhere, Mandarin felt extremely chilled. It's not that easy to kill me. Under such adversity, Mandarin's eyes showed madness. He turned his eyes, and suddenly raised his wrist. He suddenly used the ability of the ring of the mysterious ice hunter, and released a large number of arrows of black ice densely. With a thought in Colin's mind, the vibranium sword popped out of the storage device, and then Colin's wrist was shaken, and he swung the vibranium sword rapidly, turning into a sharp sword light that swept out. Crack, click. Accompanied by crisp sounds one after another, those Xuanbing arrows were immediately strangled to pieces by the sword light that filled the sky. After diffusing this move effortlessly, Colin looked in the direction of the black ice arrow, and saw Mandarin's expression was a bit weird at the moment. I saw the 10 fingers of his hands changing rapidly like lightning. Accompanied by bursts of incomprehensible incantations, Mandarin urged the magic power in his body with all his strength. The monstrous magical power shrouded his body like a black mist, so thick that it was about to drip water. His long hair danced wildly, and the black robe fluttered, looking like an evil god descending to earth. At the same time, the sky suddenly became cloudy, the wind howled, the thunder roared, and the thunder and lightning danced wildly. Immediately afterwards, a monstrous flame appeared in the hills out of thin air. Under the boost of the strong wind, it spread rapidly like the flames of a flaming mountain, and the surrounding space became distorted due to the intense heat. There was furious thunder in the sky, and there was a gust of wind on the ground that fueled the flames and swept them quickly. Seeing this astonishing scene, Colin took another look at the shining magic ring in Mandarin's hand, and his eyes couldn't help showing a look of amazement. It turns out that Mandarin is the magic power to control the 3 rings of thunder, sunflame and windcaller at the same time. It combines the 3 natural forces of thunder, flame and wind into one. Its power is nothing less than a terrible natural disaster. Boom! Thunder and wind and flames bombarded Colin at the same time. Seeing that Colin was about to be devoured by the lightning, Colin's body suddenly turned into a cloud of white smoke and dissipated in the air. This is not his real body. Seeing this, Mandarin's pupils shrank suddenly, and a gust of cold air rushed from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. He didn't expect that the blow he had accumulated all his energy would blow out the air. An ominous premonition suddenly rose in my heart. Since this is just his identity, where is his duplication? Mandarin looked around, his eyes flicked around, wanting to search for Colin's trace. The next moment, a cloud of white smoke rose again, and Colin appeared behind Mandarin without warning. Blue thunder and lightning froze in his palm, and the powerful electric current made a shrill sound like thousands of birds chirping. Chidori. Under Mandarin's horrified gaze, Chidori, who condensed the power of the thunder and lightning, passed through his body, and the terrifying power of the thunder and lightning instantly swept through his whole body. Viscera and blood vessels in his body instantly burned to ashes. The leader of the 10 rings fell into endless darkness. Kaylin hit a hit and didn't give Mandarin a chance to escape, otherwise he would become the next Jin Bin, and cutting the weeds would wipe out the roots. I will accept your 10 rings with a smile. Colin stepped forward and took off the 10 magic rings from Mandarin's charred body, and put them on his fingers to play with a playful look on his face. Uchiha's inheritance is really extraordinary. Feeling the evil energy contained in the Uchiha inheritance, Colin couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The reason why he was able to successfully kill Mandarin and Jinbin was largely due to Sharingan and Lighten Ninjutsu. Especially Sharingan can gain insight into opportunities, and even launch various mysterious and unpredictable secret techniques. Having said that, at present, Colin's use of Sharingan is just a glimpse of the door, and he has not fully mastered various secret techniques. Otherwise, why would it take so much effort? As long as Amaterasu is activated directly, it will be able to release the endless black flames to burn the enemy to death. As far as Colin knows, there are two main ways to improve the pupil power of Sharingan. One is to increase inner anger and hatred, and the other is to use Sharingan more. Practice makes perfect. The so-called Sharingan is synchronized with spiritual power, which can make people stronger quickly, and the stronger and deeper the hatred or negative emotions in the heart, the stronger the pupil power will be. However, compared to this extreme approach, Colin is still more inclined to the second method. Through practice, he will steadily improve his pupil power. He does not want to be lost by hatred. Putting away his rambling thoughts, Colin focused on the 10 magic rings on his fingers. The 10 Lord of the Rings, under the shining of the sun, are shining brightly and brilliantly. Each ring is engraved with a series of obscure spells, and a strange magic power circulates on it, which is indescribably miraculous. The power of Mandarin is mainly derived from these 10 rings. And these 10 Lord of the Rings were obtained by Mandarin from an alien spaceship that fell into the cave of Soul Valley, so to some extent, these 10 Lord of the Rings are the technological product of an advanced alien civilization. The poor rely on variation, the rich rely on variation. This sentence is really good. These 10 magic rings contain astonishing magic energy, which can control electromagnetic force, flame, black ice, strong wind, thunder, dark field and other energies. They are almost omnipotent artifacts, and their power can be seen from this. This Lord of the Rings can also be used with a specific ability. For example, when using Susano, the resetter can further increase one's own defense and frankness. When Colin casts Meteor Volcano, he can use the Solar Flame ring to amplify the power of the fire attribute. When performing Limbo Microsteps, you can also use the Time Stretcher to speed up your own speed in disguise. Therefore, with the blessing of these 10 Lord of the Rings, Colin's cultivation has increased in all aspects. Most importantly, condensing all the magic power of the 10 rings can also summon an alien creature called the extraterrestrial dragon. Its deterrent and combat power should not be weaker than the dragons in Legendary. Correspondingly, it also has a disadvantage, that is, the energy in the ring is not endless. With the release of magic power, the energy in the ring will also be consumed. When the energy is exhausted, it needs to be recharged before it can continue to be used. In other words, there is a skill cooling CD, otherwise it is really an invincible artifact. It is also the reason why there is a skill cooling CD, so Mandarin will alternately use the ability of the 10 Lord of the Rings instead of unlimited use. Let's get acquainted with their abilities first. Then, Colin changed his mind, and the god's telekinesis immersed himself in the 10 rings one by one, trying to get more familiar with their abilities. Resetter, Influencer, Time Stretcher, Windcaller, Nightcaller, God Controller, Sunblazer, Thunderer, Liar. When Colin's the god's telekinesis was immersed in the Liar's ring, along with the surge of magic power, a somewhat blurred image suddenly appeared in his mind. The scene in the picture is probably an underground boxing ring. Standing on the ring was a muscular man with a rough face and a beard. He looked like a wild wolf, aloof and arrogant, rebellious. However, this muscular man is not enough to look at in front of the big opponent who is as tall and burly as an iron tower. From the audience's point of view, almost everyone thinks that the big man will win, and no one is optimistic about the muscular man. But as the boxing match progressed, the muscular man was exceptionally brave, not at all afraid of the big man's tower-like physique, and became more and more brave. In the end, the muscular man defeated his opponent when everyone was not optimistic, and won the boxing match. The audience around the ring applauded and cheered incredulously. If you look carefully, you will find that the muscular man has no injuries after a boxing match, and he is unscathed, not even bruised. To be precise, his injuries during the fight healed quickly. Wolverine. Such a familiar appearance, coupled with the unusual recovery and healing ability, made Colin immediately guess the opponent's identity, Wolverine Logan, even though he did not reveal the iconic adamantium wolf claws in the boxing match. As the face of the X-Men in the future, Logan is undoubtedly a powerful mutant, but no matter how powerful a mutant is, he has to be just right. For Logan, boxing underground was a good way to earn a living. Firstly, being able to hide underground can better hide your identity as a mutant, and secondly, you can also have a good income. But here comes the question, why is there such an image stored in the Lord of Liars? The ability of the Lord of Liars, similar to the ability of Professor X telepathy, can browse a person's mental activities. In other words, the image stored in the Lord of the Rings is equivalent to the browsing history in the computer. Looking at this logical extension, could it be said that Mandarin once peeked into Wolverine's inner world? What is his purpose in doing this? This secret became a permanent mystery along with Mandarin's death. However, Colin guessed that this should be because Mandarin is collecting information on some powerful people. As the leader of a terrorist organization, Mandarin must not only recruit experts for its own use, but also be alert to potential enemies, so this is also reasonable. Looking around at the ruined hill, Colin leapt like flying and disappeared at the end of the road. In the following days, Colin continued to forge the body in the gravity room day after day, integrate Uchiha's inheritance, and at the same time be familiar with the abilities of the 10 Lord of the Rings and use them for his own use. On the other hand, with the joint efforts of Tony and the team, the first light-speed engine spacecraft was finally developed and entered the stage of test flight. Colin estimated that with Nick Fury's series of actions, those Hydra undercover agents lurking in S.H.I.E.L.D. were almost wiped out. S.H.I.E.L.D. Trident Building. Nick Fury breathed a sigh of relief. After dozens of days of investigations, interrogations and arrests, Nick Fury followed the list provided by Colin and basically wiped out the Hydra undercover agents lurking inside S.H.I.E.L.D. In 6 years of clerical work, Nick Fury has never been more tired than he is now. Finally, I can take a good rest. Nick Fury wanted to take a nap on the sofa to recharge his batteries. After all, he was very tired after long hours of high-intensity work. Jingle bell. Just when Nick Fury was about to take a nap, a rush of phone rang inappropriately. Nick Fury got up reluctantly, and went to answer the phone sleepily. This is S.H.I.E.L.D. Hey, you may not believe it, but just now, I witnessed a woman wearing a laser gun battle costume falling from the sky and smashing the roof of Blockbuster. The most important thing is that he is fine. And he said some weird things. Hearing the content of the report call, Nick Fury couldn't help being shocked. If ordinary people hear such a report, they will definitely think it is a prank by some boring guy. But isn't S.H.I.E.L.D.'s duty to deal with all kinds of strange events? After a moment of hesitation, Nick Fury said, "Please tell me your current location." Then, Nick Fury called the rookie agent Phil Coulson, and they drove to the location mentioned by the informant. In a phone booth near the Blockbuster movie rental store, Nick Fury saw the hole in the Blockbuster roof and the woman in a strange dress. This woman was wearing a laser gun battle suit. Although she was a woman, she had short, neat gold hair and a manly and powerful look, and her words were all inexplicable. For a while, the Kree Star Troopers, and for a while, they said they came to hunt down the Skrulls who sneaked into the Earth, and said that the Skrulls are shapeshifters who can copy their appearance and DNA, giving people a feeling of being in the fog. Fury's black question mark face. Nick Fury and Phil Coulson exchanged glances, and decided to arrest and return to the police station for investigation. Unexpectedly, a person hiding on the roof next to them attacked them and fired a shot in the direction of the two. The woman Kong-Wu pushed Nick Fury away, and then raised her hand to shoot a beam of light at the attacker. The latter escaped, and the woman Kong-Wu took advantage of the situation to pursue, and the two rushed into the same train one after the other. Chase. Seeing this, Nick Fury hurriedly greeted Phil Coulson, got into the car, and drove after the Kong-Wu woman, but because he was too hasty, Nick Fury didn't notice the strangeness in Phil Coulson's expression. Nick Fury drove his car through the busy streets and decided to go directly to the station and wait there. The next moment, the vehicle communicator suddenly rang. "Mr. Fury, this is Agent Phil Coulson. I'm still at Blockbuster. Where is everyone? I've finished collecting evidence." Nick Fury. He looked at the car communicator in a daze, and then at Phil Coulson who was sitting on the co-pilot. When Nick Fury noticed the flustered expression on the other side, he immediately realized that the one in front of him was a counterfeit. In the car, Nick Fury wrestled with the fake Phil Coulson. Because Nick Fury was still driving, he had no duplication skills, and was strangled by the fake Nick Fury, almost out of breath. In the nick of time, Nick Fury slammed the steering wheel, the body of the car slammed sharply, and the right side hit a bus that happened to pass by. The fake Phil Coulson, who was sitting in the driver's seat, was killed on the spot after being hit violently. It took a while to reveal the real body with green skin, pointed ears, and a strange lizard-like appearance. Nick Fury was only slightly injured and dizzy, but when he saw the lizard man next to him, his face changed. Words such as shapeshifters who copy the appearance, could it be said that this fake Phil Coulson was changed by the Skrulls? In the S.H.I.E.L.D. autopsy room, Nick Fury, who was still in shock, learned from the forensic doctor who dissected the lizardman's body that the lizardman was not carbon-based, and his body composition was a substance that was not on the periodic table. You must know that all creatures on the Earth are carbon-based, so this also confirms from the side that the lizard people are not from the Earth, but aliens, most likely the Skrulls mentioned by the woman Kong Wu. If the Skrulls are really aliens who have sneaked into the Earth, then this is undoubtedly a huge amounts of threat. Maybe they can learn the way to deal with the Skrulls from the woman Kong Wu, so the top priority now is to find her. With this in mind, Nick Fury began to track the whereabouts of Kong Wu woman by various means, and finally found Kong Wu woman in a place called Panchow Bar in California. According to Ms. Kong Wu, she seems to have lived on the Earth, but many memories are blurred and missing, and there is only a vague code name called Pegasus Project. Nick Fury soon realized that this Pegasus Project might be the key to solving all mysteries. Pegasus Project, Pegasus Project. I thought about it, someone might be able to help us. Nick Fury repeated the Pegasus Project in his mouth, and seemed to think of something the next moment, and murmured. New York, Manhattan Ocean View Villa. Colin, who was disturbed by the two uninvited guests, suddenly felt a little headache when he saw Nick Fury and Carol Danvers sitting on the sofa, plus a big orange cat. One is the annoying S.H.I.E.L.D. advanced agent, and the other is Kong Wu's powerful silly girl, who looks like a pair of weird nieces and rebellious nieces. Nick Fury was the first to break the silence. Mr. Colin, long time no see, it's really a pleasure to see you again. Colin couldn't help but rolled his eyes. Happy, how happy. Nick Fury. Colin managed to kill the conversation with one sentence, but he didn't care about it. If Colin remembers correctly, it has been less than a month since we last met at the matchmaking meeting in the Hexagon building. Unexpectedly, this annoying guy came to the door again. Although he had a pleasant cooperation experience, but Colin doesn't want to get too involved with S.H.I.E.L.D., and there's also a silly Carol and an unpredictable Yuan Devourer. Nick Fury cleared his cough. Let's get down to business. Let me introduce, her name is Firth. You may not believe it, but she is an alien from the Kree civilization. After hearing what Nick Fury said, Colin looked at Carol who had just landed on Earth with great interest, and Carol also looked at Colin warily. Are you suspecting that I was transformed from a Skrull? Colin said with a half smile. How do you know about the Skrulls? Carol's pretty face turned cold, and he raised his arm. The photon energy cannon on his wrist was aimed at Colin, ready to fire at any time. Even Nick Fury beside him was full of doubts. You know, Carol was ambushed by the Skrulls in a secret operation, and then fell to the Earth. The Skrulls also sneaked into the Earth. What they are best at is copying the appearance of others, even DNA can be replicated. Once bitten by a snake and afraid of well ropes for 10 years, Carol saw everyone as a Skrull out of guard, as if he was suffering from persecution paranoia. It's time for me to ask you the other way around. You came to me and wanted to go to war for no reason. This is not a friendly signal. Colin sat fiercely on the sofa, with a trace of anger hidden in his calm expression, but the frightening aura he exuded made one's heart awe-inspiring. Firth, don't worry, there is no need for Mr. Colin to be suspicious. Besides, if he is really a Skrull, why did he take the initiative to mention this matter? Isn't it causing trouble? Nick Fury spoke out to dissuade him, and Carol released and restrained the photon energy cannon with some doubts, and the tense atmosphere eased a little. We're here to ask you about Project Pegasus. Nick Fury took over the conversation and said to Colin with a serious expression. At the docking conference a month ago, with the light-speed engine spacecraft Colin showed, it not only won an order of tens of billions from the Hexagon building, but also rekindled hope in the military, announcing that it would join forces with Stark Industries and NASA to launch the Pegasus project with the goal of crossing the stars. As one of the participants in this plan, Colin should also know some of the inside information, which is why Nick Fury brought Firth to Colin. Pegasus project. Colin raised his brows slightly. In fact, Colin knew their purpose the moment the two came to the villa. It's just that he is still in hesitation right now. Is he trying to reveal the secret 5 years ago? However, according to the direction of the plot, Nick Fury and Carol will investigate clearly sooner or later. It is better to tell them directly, so as to save the two people from disturbing themselves endlessly. Pegasus Project. This must be traced back more than 10 years ago. More than 10 years ago, Mar-Vell, a scientist from the Kree Empire, was ordered to sneak into the Earth. He entered S.H.I.E.L.D. under the pseudonym Wendy Lawson and wanted to destroy the Earth's aerospace technology. Mar-Vell met a flight member named Carol Danvers on Earth. The two are both mentors and friends, and they work closely together. As time went by, Mar-Vell fell in love with the Earth, and turned to help human beings develop science. At the same time, he cooperated with S.H.I.E.L.D. to develop Tesseract, and used the extracted energy core to develop light-speed engine fighters. Just when the development of the light-speed engine fighter was about to be completed, the Kree Empire realized Mar-Vell's betrayal and sent the Star Trooper Brave Rog to hunt down Mar-Vell and bring back the energy core. During the fierce battle with Young Rog, the plane piloted by Mar-Vell and Carol crashed. Mar-Vell died on the spot, and Carol survived by luck. In order to prevent Young Rog from snatching the energy core, Carol shot and destroyed the energy core. Unexpectedly, the cosmic energy radiated from the energy core accidentally entered Carol's body, giving her powerful energy. At the same time, he also lost his original memory, and was brought back to the Kree Empire by the Brave Rog, and transformed into an interstellar warrior for his own use. So your name is not Firth, but Carol Danvers. As for the so-called Skrulls who ambushed you, they are not heinous. On the contrary, they are persecuted by the Kree Empire, poor people wandering in the universe. Carol listened to this unknown secret. His face was cloudy and cloudy. At the same time, the memory nerves in his brain were touched, and long-term memories gradually came to mind. Nick Fury also looked at Colin in astonishment. How did you know this secret? Did you forget that during World War II, in order to stop Hydra, Captain America Steve sank into the Atlantic Ocean together with the Tesseract in a plane? Transfer it to Mar-Vell, who is also researched by Dr. Wendy Lawson. Colin spread his hands and said angrily. I see, I did hear the seniors of S.H.I.E.L.D. talk about it a few times before. Nick Fury showed a look of surprise, and he was also able to breathe a sigh of relief after learning that the Skrulls were not hostile. Seeing Nick Fury's belated appearance, Colin smiled. In fact, Howard never told him about it at all, but as a time traveler who is familiar with the plot, would Colin tell others that he has God's perspective. But I have to say that this space gem is really amazing, because whether it is Captain America, Iron Man, or Captain Marvel, in the final analysis, their abilities all come from space gems, or an extension of space gems. Following Colin's narration, Carol's complexion changed several times, his gloomy eyes became clearer, and those missing memories finally came to his mind, and gradually became clear, and everything suddenly became clear. I remembered everything. Carol's eyes widened, with mixed feelings in his heart. Unexpectedly, she has been kept in the dark by the people of the Kree Empire all these years, and even made accomplices for Tigers. For a while, she had mixed feelings, and her hatred for the Brave Rog and even the highest wisdom was even more in her heart. Then what are you going to do next? Nick Fury asked. The top priority now is to rush to Mar-Vell's laboratory, where the Tesseract is, and it would be a disaster if Young Rog and the others give them the upper hand. It was too late to feel melancholy, and Carol soon realized a more important thing about herself. Before Mar-Vell died, she had told her the decoding coordinates of the laboratory. If nothing else, Tesseract was in that laboratory, and it would be bad if it was snatched by the Kree. But here comes the problem. That coordinate is located in a corner of outer space, and it is also far away from the Earth. How will she fly there? Thinking of this, Carol raised his head and looked at Colin for help. A rare look of embarrassment appeared on his heroic face. Colin tapped his fingers on the armrest, muttering to himself, why is this guy still here? Are you still ready to rely on him? He doesn't like tomboys. Just when Colin was about to issue an order to evict the guest, the familiar electronic voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Facing Captain Marvel's request for help, please make your choice. Option 1. Expel Carol. The task is completed, and the reward is a magic handkerchief from the Digimon world. Option 2. Refuse to help Carol. The task is completed, and the treasure of the Treasure King, from the World of Fate will be rewarded. Option 3. Help Carol. The task is completed, and the reward is the dragon body, from Fengyan World. Select the system to trigger again. Sweeping through the 3 options on the system interface, Colin's heart moved, and he silently weighed the pros and cons. Mr. Colin, may I ask, your company's first light-speed engine spacecraft should have passed the test flight stage. Nick Fury said. Carol followed Nick Fury's gaze to Colin, his eyes lit up, and a look of anticipation appeared on his heroic cheeks. Although I don't understand exactly how Stark Industries developed a light-speed engine spaceship that even the Kree Empire could not reach, but if I can borrow it, I can undoubtedly quickly reach the laboratory left by Mar-Vell. Facing the expectant eyes of Nick Fury and Carol, Colin couldn't help curling his lips, and said with a smile, "You not only ask for information from me, but also borrow my spaceship. Don't you really think my place is there a free shelter?" This. Nick Fury and Carol looked at each other, both blushed, especially Carol was even more embarrassed. When we met for the first time, I asked people for information and borrowed precious things like spaceships. Even a carefree interstellar warrior like Carol felt a little embarrassed. Unexpectedly, Colin then changed the subject and said, "But since you are also indirectly protecting the Earth, it's okay to lend you the spaceship, but you have to make sure that you don't damage the spaceship. Otherwise you will have to pay a corresponding fee. Price as compensation." Are you serious? Carol was very pleasantly surprised. She patted her chest and promised solemnly, "Don't worry, if I damage the spaceship, you will be punished." Hearing this, Colin stroked his chin, and took another look at Carol's powerful but also protruding and hot figure, and couldn't help but a playful arc evoked. In the end, Colin decided to lend the spaceship to Carol, definitely not coveting the other party's beauty. As the saying goes, many friends have multiple paths, and the spaceship was lent to Carol instead of being given to her. Why not be a favor, let alone a favor from Captain Marvel? You know, Captain Marvel, who has lifted the restraint of the suppressor and turned on the double star state, has the level of a single universe, which is enough to challenge Thanos, who has not collected all infinite gems. In other words, if Captain Marvel returns earlier, there will be no Avengers Alliance 3 and Avengers Alliance 4, so the weight of this favor is definitely not light. Even if the spaceship was accidentally damaged during the period, Colin didn't feel bad at all. As long as he mastered the core technology, he could still build 10 or 8 more ships, which was equivalent to testing the performance of the spaceship. Definitely finally prompted Colin to make the third choice. Definitely still values the heavy rewards that come with it. The body of the dragon element. The so-called dragon essence refers to the true essence of the dragon, which is formed by condensing the essence of the whole body of the dragon. Even the blood vessels and muscles will be reshaped. According to the system's instructions, after exchanging the dragon yuan body, one can live forever, greatly increase one's skill, be invulnerable to all poisons, stimulate one's potential, regain one's spirit, and have no side effects. In other words, its effect is equivalent to Super Serum plus Extremis plus Elixir plus Mangu Red Clam plus Rambo Ball. For the cultivation of martial arts, the importance of constitution and blood is self-evident. To practice martial arts, if physical strength represents the lower limit, then the blood constitution determines the upper limit of cultivation. Take Goku and Vegeta in Dragon Ball as an example. If they only have a strong physical body and fighting ability but no Super Saiyan blood, then their strength will be greatly reduced. As for the combat power of Starburst, don't even think about it. Without a good constitution bloodline, even if I give you the Infinity Gauntlet, you won't be able to snap your fingers. It is conceivable that if Colin wants to break through the level Godfather category, or even level single universe category, multi-universe level, having a supreme constitution bloodline is indispensable. Where is that spaceship? At the Stark Institute. Then let's go quickly. Carol has a hot-tempered personality, and his words and deeds are all resolute. He can't wait to put a rocket on his legs and fly to space immediately. Although Colin was a little speechless, he understood the urgency of the situation, so he immediately took Nick Fury and Carol to the Stark Institute. On the way, Colin obliquely reminded Carol to ask her to take off the suppressor on the back of her neck. With the contact of the suppressor, the vast energy that had been sealed for a long time in her body was finally reactivated, which instantly made Carol Nirvana like a new life. After a while, the three came to the Stark Research Institute. Coming to the lobby of the institute, soon, an oval-shaped spaceship full of technological texture and supported by 8 mechanical legs came into view. When Carol saw this very sci-fi spaceship, she was also amazed, which was more advanced than the flight devices she had set up in the Carey Empire. Seeing the arrival of the three big brothers, Colin, Tony, who is leading the team to build the second spaceship, also came over. Colin gave a brief introduction to the two parties, and they got to know each other. Tony, let this Captain Carol Danvers test the spaceship for us. Hasn't the spaceship already been test-flied? This time to a more distant space. Tony nodded when he heard this, but since it was Colin's decision, he, a free laborer, would naturally have no objection. After the hatch was opened, the Yuan Devourer, who likes to drill holes, rushed in, followed by Carol, who entered the spaceship and sat on the cockpit to familiarize himself with the spaceship. Definitely don't need to ask whether she can fly. You know, Carol is a skilled flight officer whether she is on Earth or in the Kree Empire. Immediately afterwards, under Tony's guidance, coupled with Carol's own comprehension, she soon mastered the flying method of the spaceship. Mr. Colin, thank you very much this time, I will definitely keep this favor in my heart. Carol's powder fist hit Colin's chest lightly, and there was gratitude in his hearty words. Hee, don't give me a sloppy eye, remember that if you damage this spaceship, you will have to pay for it. There was a meaningful smile on the corner of Colin's mouth. It's a deal. Carol started the spacecraft and entered the decoded coordinates. The 8 mechanical legs were slowly retracted, and the light-speed engine was activated instantly. Accompanied by a sonic boom, the next moment, the spaceship turned into a dazzling rainbow and suddenly entered the sky. Looking at the light-speed engine spacecraft submerged in the clouds, Nick Fury was slightly lost in thought, not knowing what he was thinking. Colin squinted at Nick Fury. Why are you still here? Don't you shield all have free time? The implication is that you should leave. Nick Fury was not angry when he heard this, but looked back at Colin from the sky. Unfortunately, such a relaxed day is very short, and I will go to Hungary with Hawkeye and others soon. Budapest is on a mission. Budapest. A gleam flashed in Colin's eyes. Nick Fury didn't reveal too much about this plan, but Colin guessed that the Budapest battle will start next. In short, it is a contest between S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Red House organization in Budapest. Over there Nick Fury and Hawkeye, about to have a fight with the Red House guys. It was also after this Budapest confrontation that Black Widow accepted Hawkeye's persuasion and jumped to S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury naturally didn't know what Colin was thinking, but asked tentatively, what do you think of those Skrulls who came to Earth? Colin was slightly taken aback. It turned out that this guy was still thinking about this. What do you think? How else can I watch it? Definitely I just stood and watched it. To put it bluntly, the ability of these Skrulls to copy human appearance and DNA is really not covered, it is simply the alien version of Mystique. Thousands of changes, you can change your appearance every day, without repeating the same. Isn't it beautiful to be a beauty in the workplace, a pretty cook mother, a black, silky Tui, a sister-in-law, a girl, etc. Just thinking about it is very exciting. Thoughts like these flashed by. Colin pondered for a moment and said, I can't give a specific answer to this question, but there is a saying in Waksha that people who are not my race must have a different heart, even if you understand and sympathize these Skrulls, but can you trust them completely? Don't talk about Skrulls, just say you black people have been here for 400 years and are still being discriminated against, let alone aliens. The United States keeps claiming that everyone is equal, but in fact, various unequal phenomena are common. Can white people and black people really put aside their barriers and treat each other honestly? This is undoubtedly a big question mark. Earthlings and Skrulls are the same way. Colin expressed his opinion. Hearing this, Nick Fury couldn't help but fell into deep thought. Instead of continuing to chat with Nick Fury, Colin sent someone to send Nick Fury away, while he said goodbye to Tony and returned to the villa. Now there is a more important thing waiting for him to do. Manhattan Seaview Villa, quiet room. Kay Lin Yi couldn't wait to call out the system interface after closing the door. Congratulations to the host for completing the task of helping Carol and getting the reward of the Dragon Yuan body. Do you want to reshape the blood of the flesh now? Remodeling. After Colin took a deep breath, he said firmly. As soon as the words fell, a golden dragon totem disappeared into the center of Colin's eyebrows in a flash. Immediately afterwards, Colin's body felt dry and hot, as if being scorched by an oven. The next moment, a ferocious and domineering force of dragon origin rampaged through his body, washing away flesh, bones, meridians, and even every inch of cell, reshaping the constitution and blood vessels. Broken and then erected, rejuvenated and reborn. The process of reshaping Constitution's blood was very uncomfortable. The pain like a knife made Colin grit his teeth, and his head was covered with sweat. Fortunately, the pain didn't last too long. After the pain subsided, Colin was surprised to find that his body had undergone earth-shaking changes. Unknowingly, the body became stronger again, the muscles on the body swelled up one by one, the blood vessels were thick, the muscles were knotted, full of explosive power, and it exuded a bronze luster in the sun, which was very visually impactful. Then, Colin immersed himself in his mind and began to look inside his body. I saw that the bones turned into crystal clear jade bones, tough and firm, shining brightly. The meridians all over the body are even coated with a layer of gold luster, which widens several times, and all the meridians are completely opened up. The blood also became golden yellow, and the blood all over his body turned into gold and flowed in Wang Yang's body, reflecting his body golden yellow. Colin clenched his fist casually, and then he heard the sound of crackling bones, and a surge of turbulent and majestic power surged in his fist. Boom! You can hear the buzzing sound of the air with a random punch, and there is even a faint sound of roaring dragons. Is this the power of the Dragon Yuan body? Colin's eyes shone brightly, and he burst into ecstasy. This dragon body is really amazing. Colin has been completely reborn now, both constitution and blood have been reshaped, and he has become a supreme body. Among other things, the current Colin is invulnerable to all poisons, and his lifespan has also been greatly increased. At least he can live for thousands of years, just like Indra. Not to mention, the skills have been greatly increased, the potential has been stimulated, and there is even an image of recovery. The so-called image of recovery can recover from injuries in a short period of time, even if it is a broken arm or a hand. 2 flowers bloom, each representing a branch. Just when Colin reshaped the dragon body. Carol, who came to space, also successfully found the cosmic demon in Marvel's laboratory. Immediately afterwards, Carol relied on releasing the shackles of the suppressor, coupled with the powerful combat power after turning on the double star state, defeated the brave Rog, and also repelled the army of the Kree Empire led by the accuser Ronan, protecting the Earth from infested by alien wars. After settling the dispute, Carol returned to Earth, handed over the light-speed engine spacecraft to Stark Industries, then handed over the Tesseract and Yuan Devourer to Nick Fury for safekeeping, and gave Nick Fury and Kei-Lin Yi a quantum paging machine. Afterwards, Carol turned into Captain Marvel, stayed on the alien planet, and continued to maintain the peace between the stars. As for Nick Fury, he was promoted to be the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D. because of his outstanding performance in eliminating Hydra undercover agents and protecting the Earth from the invasion of the Kree Empire. After this incident, he also realized that it is difficult to truly defend the Earth with the power of ordinary people. Only by calling more superheroes like Captain America and Captain Marvel. Is it called the Asgardian Project, or the Protector Project? When Nick Fury was struggling with a plan on the computer, he caught a glimpse of a photo next to Carol when he was flying a fighter plane on Earth, and the serial number of that fighter plane was called Avenger. In this case, let's call it the Avengers Project. Next, Colin is still in the company, the villa and the practice room at 3 points and 1 line. However, with the passage of time, Colin's strength has not improved by leaps and bounds as before, but has stagnated. No matter how hard he tried, he has not made a breakthrough, which makes him a little upset. Kei-Lin realized that this was a bottleneck period. Cultivation is a trinity, and I put too much emphasis on the physical body and exercises. Feeling that his own realm and cultivation base remained unmoved like a rock, Colin couldn't help feeling emotional. The way of cultivation emphasizes the trinity, and the physical body, exercises and spiritual power must go hand in hand. Talking about the other powerhouses of level Godfather, God King Odin and Ancient One Mage all have three elements. Their combat prowess is astonishing in the past, and their spiritual power is also boundless. Only in this way can they break through the shackles of heaven and man and achieve the realm of the Father. However, Colin's cultivation focuses too much on the physical body and exercises, but lacks the cultivation methods of spiritual power, resulting in a situation of favoritism. In addition, cultivation is not just about burying your head in painstaking practice, you have to be relaxed and proper. Haste makes waste. Colin decided to stop practicing first, change his mind, and relax himself, maybe he can have some insights. Colin was sitting on the soft and comfortable sofa, and with a simple move, several copies of the latest newspapers of the day fell into Colin's hands. During the senatorial meeting held yesterday, Congressman Leonard promoted the threat of mutants, believing that the existence of mutants would put the world in danger, and applied to Congress to pass a bill to clean up mutants. General Stryker of the military and President Laika of Tesla expressed their support. Quote, Charles from the Xavierability Youth Academy is looking for various ways to try to communicate with the United States government to eliminate the barrier between humans and mutants. 1 week later, the summit of the United States attended by the leaders of various countries will be held in the Hudson Building as scheduled. A strange tremor occurred near the Himalayas, and geological surveyors are investigating. Stark Industries has been making frequent moves in recent days. First, it invested in emerging companies such as PIM Technology, and then completed a $3 billion order arms deal with a Middle Eastern customer. At the same time, it aimed its development at the fields of energy, aerospace, and artificial intelligence. The rapid development momentum has been favored by capital. Legendary motorcycle stunt rider Blazer left this world in a stunt accident that happened that day, and his son Johnny decided to inherit the mantle and continue the motorcycle stunt industry. Colin glanced over the newspaper, and saw that the recent mutant cleanup bill had been reported extensively in the newspaper, which had also become a hot topic of discussion at the moment. You know, Mutant was very secretive at first, hiding his identity in the human world. However, since World War II, mutants have slowly entered the human eye because of their unreasonable characteristics. Especially in the 1990s and even the 21st century, because of differences in race and standpoints, the conflict between humans and mutants has become more and more intensified. In the end, even to the point of irreversibility, a protracted war began. Now it is estimated that the timeline is approaching the plot of X-Men 1. The conflict between humans and mutants has been going on for a long time, and it did not happen overnight. How the disputes and conflicts between the two sides evolve, even Colin does not know. Just when Colin's thoughts diverged, Jarvis suddenly sent a fax. This fax is a business plan, which lists the company's recent acquisition and investment plans, and sends it to Colin for review. In this way, Colin can stay at home, and can also firmly control the development of Stark Industry. Colin flipped through the prospectus in his hand, and he knew the company's recent investment trends clearly. When Colin saw the end of the prospectus, there was a real estate that caught Colin's attention. There was a note behind the address of the property, Greenwich, 178A Brick Street. After a while, Colin followed the address on the proposal, drove less than 10 minutes to the small town of Greenwich in Manhattan, and found no. 178A, Brick Street. However, Colin was not very interested in the newly purchased property, but instead focused on the house at number 177A next door. Located in the center of the small town of Greenville, this building has 3 floors, soft and quiet, and looks unique compared with the steel jungle buildings not far away. It is worth mentioning that on the 3rd floor there is a circular window with 4 streamlines, and the silvery luster refracted by the sunlight is like a time dial. It doesn't look fancy here, but Colin won't be fooled by its ordinary appearance. This is New York's best holy place, one of the 3 greatest holy places. The holy place is the connection point of the multi-universe, and it is also the base of the Supreme Mage. There are 2 such holy places on Earth, in London and Hong Kong. Because the holy place is the connecting point of multi-universes, one can travel through the multi-universe from this springboard, but also have to face the danger of invasion from other dimensions. Therefore, in order to protect the holy place from other dimensions, there will be Supreme Mage and apprentices waiting here, not to mention that there is also an important magic treasure in this holy place, the Book of Waishandi, and Eye of Agamotto aka Time Gem. Colin also had his own considerations for buying the house next door. As the saying goes, there are 3 cunning rabbits, no, 3 caves for wise men. Protecting the holy place is the vocation of the Supreme Mage. Strictly speaking, all the land around the holy place is within the scope of protection. In this way, being a neighbor with the Supreme Mage is actually equivalent to having a free bodyguard, and it is also a level godfather. In case the Silver Surfer, Thanos, etc. invade the Earth in the future, Colin can also keep a backup, and use this place as a safe house at critical moments. Colin temporarily lives at 178A Brick Street. Plant flowers, raise dogs, and experience the quiet and leisurely life in the small town. I have to say that although this kind of life is dull, it is also leisurely and contented. And it allowed Colin to get rid of his impetuous mentality and really immerse himself in thinking about some problems. This even made him understand many problems that he had ignored before, and thus gained new insights. On this day, Colin was watering flowers and plants in the yard. Mr. Colin is in a good mood. An ethereal and clear voice from outside came. In the next moment, a magic door appeared out of nowhere in the center of the courtyard, and then a figure crossed time and space through the magic door and came into the courtyard. Colin followed the sound and saw that the other party was a middle-aged woman with sword eyebrows and starry eyes, extraordinary, dressed in a yellow mage robe. Although she was hairless, she still couldn't hide her softness and wisdom. Such an extraordinary refined temperament, coupled with the iconic might and magic, who else but the Supreme Mage Ancient One? As for how the other party knew about himself. The chairman of Stark Industries, an 18-year-old business genius, titles like these hang over Colin, so much so that Colin has almost become a household name in New York. Even if he is walking on the street, he is often recognized. Besides, it is not difficult for Ancient One Mage to investigate his identity. Hey, maybe this is the distress of celebrities. It turned out to be Ancient One Mage. You are not staying in Kamar Taj, but you are interested in visiting me. You are really a rare visitor. The surprise in Colin's eyes flashed away, and with a wave of one hand, the kettle in his hand automatically fell to the side of the pool. He originally thought about going to Holy Place to inquire about the situation in 2 days, but he didn't expect that Ancient One Mage would get there first. Ancient One Mage couldn't help staring at the words, his pupils shrinking slightly. Do you know this mage? Since learning that a new neighbor named Colin Stark moved to the side of Holy Place in Niu, Ancient One Mage began to pay attention, and today it took the initiative to pay a visit, in order to test the reality of this new neighbor. After all, a well-known arms dealer in the business world moved next door to Holy Place without warning, which is indeed a bit suspicious, especially when Colin directly reveals his identity. It undoubtedly adds a bit of suspiciousness. As you know, as a businessman who likes to collect all kinds of information, I naturally have my own news channel. Don't you also know my identity? Besides, you know me, and I know you. Isn't that just equal information? Shah has a saying that it is a joy to have friends coming from afar, not to mention that we are neighbors. Please sit down. Colin smiled lightly, and sat down on a stone bench under the vine trellis in the yard. Ancient One Mage glanced at Colin, only to see that she lightly shook off her sleeve robe, and brushed away a few leaves stained on the stone bench from the air, and then Ancient One Mage came to sit opposite Colin in a graceful figure, with a demeanor there is a sense of immortality in the room. Colin took out a set of delicate tea sets, and started to brew it. At the same time, he asked tentatively, I don't know what the Ancient One Mage is talking about here. I'm afraid it's not as simple as a neighbor visiting. Where? I'm just curious why the famous Mr. Colin chose to live in a corner of Brick Street here. Ancient One Mage smiled, and there was no expression on Baoshang's solemn face. Haha, although I'm used to living a life of extravagance and affluence, can't I have a rare experience of such a comfortable pastoral life? Besides, my house purchase should not be within your jurisdiction from New York to Holy Place, right? Colin also looked indifferent, with a warm smile on his face. This is definitely, it's your freedom to live wherever you want, but since you know the Holy Place in Niuyo, you should also know the meaning behind the Holy Place, and there are certain risks involved. Thank you for reminding me, but there is a saying in shopping malls that risks and opportunities coexist. Although I am not an opportunistic businessman, I don't mind taking a look at the risks of living next to holy place. What kind of opportunities will be born? Maybe it opened the door to a new world. As he spoke, Colin handed a cup of brewed hot tea to Ancient One Mage. Ancient One Mage stared at Colin, his deep and distant eyes were shining brightly, and the purple mist was dense, like a vast and boundless galaxy, as if he would be sucked into it if he didn't pay attention. At the moments Ancient One Mage tried to use some kind of psychokinesis magic to spy on Colin's inner world. But the strange thing is that Colin's inner world seems to be shrouded in an unfathomable the gods telekinesis, which can isolate or even rebound all external probes. All the psychokinesis sent out by Ancient One Mage melted like ice and snow, and after there was no news and no results, Ancient One Mage could only shake his head and give up this idea. You are stronger than expected. The unfathomable mind is even more unsearchable. Gathering his thoughts, Ancient One Mage picked up the tea in the cup and drank it down. All of a sudden, a rich and fresh tea fragrance permeated the mouth, refreshing an endless aftertaste, which made Ancient One Mage's eyes brighten. You're not the first to say that. The last one. Professor X from Xavier Ability Junior Academy. Even Charles can't read your thoughts and memories, you are really extraordinary. You all have one thing in common. What? You are all bald. Professor X and Ancient One Mage all have shiny bald heads, which reminds Colin of the classic saying that has been handed down from later generations, they become stronger and at the same time they become bald. Professor X is an alpha-level mutant, which can even cause the hearts of thousands of people to collapse instantly under full urging. It is simply a dimensionality reduction blow. Not to mention Ancient One Mage, as another powerhouse of the level Godfather, Ancient One Mage can hit a green Titan Soul Astral with a light palm, which shows its unparalleled cultivation. It is worth mentioning that the abilities of Professor X and Ancient One Mage are also of the spiritual law system. Could it be said that if you are not bald, you cannot become a qualified spiritual law system expert? Colin couldn't help thinking so. Just kidding, you all trust your intuition, but sometimes intuition is often unreliable. It's like now, you are wary of my motives for coming to Brick Street, but I am not interested in the dispute between your magic world and the dark dimension, and I have no intention of overstepping. I just come here to experience the leisurely pastoral life. It's all for cultivating sentiment. Definitely I don't mind having one more Supreme Mage as a neighbor. Well, I hope the facts are as you say. Accompanied by Colin's words, although Ancient One Mage still had some doubts, his original vigilant expression eased a lot. In fact, if you think about it carefully, the reason why Ancient One Mage is like this is also reasonable. As the Supreme Mage, the Ancient One Mage is responsible for preventing the Earth from being invaded by the multi-universe and other dimensional forces, especially the Dormammu of the Dark Dimension. Ancient One Mage is selfless and persevering, silently guarding the peace and tranquility of the Earth. If there are other dimensions that threaten the safety of the Earth, she will stop it without hesitation. Under such circumstances, letting Ancient One Mage's nerves be tense all the time, it is inevitable that she will be a little suspicious. In her words, this is called careful sailing for 10,000 years. After all, Dormammu of the Dark Dimension is eyeing, always coveting the plan to devour the Earth. Ancient One Mage stared at Colin in front of him with vast and deep eyes like stars, trying to detect some clues from the other's expression. But Colin still looked as usual, and there was no wave in gouging. Well, I'll put aside what you said, and hope you enjoy your stay in Bleecker Street. Saying that, Ancient One Mage got up slowly. The Might and Magic Gate, which was whirling with flames, reappeared. Ancient One Mage stepped into the Might and Magic Gate and broke through the air. Before leaving, he said, "By the way, the tea you made is very good. Welcome to drink tea anytime." Colin nodded with a smile. Watching the departure of Ancient One Mage, Colin murmured in his heart, "It is not indecent to come and go, and next time he should go to the holy place next door to visit the holy place of Kamar Taj and the legendary." Not long after Ancient One left, Colin suddenly heard sirens blare outside, and there was a sound of commotion. The source seemed to be at the Manhattan train station. "What's going on?" Colin murmured, full of curiosity. Colin's figure was thunderous. He jumped out of the courtyard, flashed and flew above the small town of Greenville, and approached the Manhattan train station as fast as a ghost. Because of the practice in the gravity room, Colin was able to get rid of the shackles of gravity, and he was able to span a distance of tens of feet in an instant. After a few breaths, Colin appeared on the roof of the building near the train station, looking around at the same time. At the moment's Manhattan train station seems to have just had a fierce fight, and the scene is ruined and a mess. There were many police cars parked outside the train station, several cars were damaged, and guns were scattered all over the ground. On the other hand, the policemen also looked embarrassed. Everyone looked at a helicopter that took off in the distance at the same time, and sighed helplessly. "Mr. Colin, long time no see." A sound of voice transmission suddenly sounded in Colin's mind. Colin frowned slightly, followed the direction of the sound transmission, and looked away. His eyes focused on a car not far from the train station, and he happened to meet Professor X's gaze. Professor X was pale and depressed, with a look of loss. Professor X. Colin couldn't help feeling that the world is really small enough, and he didn't expect to meet Professor X here. But the scene in front of him gave him a feeling of déjà vu. The riot at the train station, Professor X and Jean Grey, and the helicopter flying away, isn't this exactly the plot of X-Men 1? Could it be that the little rascal has been kidnapped by Magneto? If this is the case, Magneto will soon implement the plan to turn all the top leaders of the United Nations into mutants. While Colin and Professor X were communicating with each other through sound transmission, Chingele, who was sitting next to Professor X, was also looking at Colin, her eyes lit up. He is handsome, with sword eyebrows and star eyes, and a strong and straight physique. He is even more handsome than he looks on TV. His eyes are restrained, containing infinite wisdom, and his brows are even more radiant. Extraordinary refined temperament. Just like a glimpse, Chingele's heart trembled slightly, her beautiful eyes shone with light, and inexplicable emotions flowed in her heart. Westchester County, Xavier Ability Junior Academy. With his hands on his back, Colin looked out through the window and had a panoramic view of the academy. A classical European-style castle with a large area and beautiful scenery. During the break between classes, the mutant students in the college are playing in the college, full of youthful and energetic atmosphere, which can be described as unique. Many mutant students are playing on the lawn. A female student with the ability to control water controlled the jet of water from the fountain and watered it down from the top of a boy. On the basketball court, a tall and thin student's arms are as flexible as rubber, and he can dunk and score frequently even if he is halfway across the basketball court. There was also an obese boy, whose body seemed to be extremely elastic, curled up into a ball, bouncing and rolling on the lawn. There is another person with strong and thick limbs, climbing and moving between the walls, like walking on the ground. The next moment, he opened his mouth suddenly, and his tongue popped out like a long ponytail, engulfing a butterfly flying over the flowers and swallowing it into his stomach. The students of Xavier's school are really talented and have their own unique skills. Different from ordinary mutants, these mutant students have been taught by Professor X, Cyclops, Jean Grey and others. Most of them have accepted their identity as mutants, and they will use their abilities flexibly and skillfully. Standardized and disciplined. If Colin hadn't accepted Professor X's invitation, it might have been difficult for Colin to see such a spectacular sight. "Charles, we have to do something now, are we really going to die for the little rascal?" At the moment, a thick and impatient voice interrupted Colin's thoughts. Colin looked away from the window and looked at the people in the dean's office. "I saw Wolverine Logan questioning Professor X dissatisfiedly. Logan, calm down, the professor will never put any student's safety at risk, but the little rascal has disappeared after being kidnapped by Magneto." Storm Orlo persuaded that although he could understand Logan's urgency to rescue the little rascal, he shouldn't question the professor's kindness like this. "Isn't finding people exactly what you are good at, Charles? Just like you used the brainwave strengthening machine to find the little rascal just now, so why not find them again? Logan, this is not an easy task. Finding the little rascal just now has greatly overdrawn my mental power, and I can no longer stimulate the telepathy power in a short time." There was a bitter smile on the corner of Professor X's mouth. His face was as pale as paper. Both his physical and mental strength had reached the limit of his load. As soon as this remark came out, everyone present couldn't help falling into silence. And Chin Gele's lips are tight pursing. If you want to activate the brain wave strengthening machine in the hesitation, although it will be accompanied by a lot of risks, but now you can only try it, otherwise the little naughty will really be very bad. And Jean Grey has a vague premonition that there may be a huge unknown conspiracy hidden behind Magneto's kidnapping of the little rascal. Just when the X-Men were at a loss, Colin said in a calm manner, "You don't have to need a brainwave strengthening machine to find someone. Maybe I can help you with this matter. Thanks for watching.